Okay, well, thank you and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting for Wednesday, the 3rd of February 2021. It's now my pleasure to open the meeting. We only have one apology. General Manager Meehan is away unwell, and we welcome Manager Darcy and Manager Searle, along with other staff and members of the gallery. Welcome. Now I'd like to call on Councillor Duff to recognise the traditional owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors, you have the agenda in front of you. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest matter that they wish to raise under item 4 of the agenda? Councillor Shoemaker?
No, I just wanted to, I see it's Edenvale North Road, but just raise my potential conflict of interest being that I have a property on the corner of Edenvale South Road, so it's opposite that. Not sure if that's relevant, but just thought I'd bring that to the Chamber's attention.
So 6.10.
Yeah, just note that
Mr. CEO.
Councillor Shoemaker has a property on the corner of Edenvale South Road, which is opposite that.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. And
intention to stay, or
if the Chamber sees that fit, that would be my preference.
you will need to deal with that then, Mr. Mayor.
yeah, we'll need to deal with that matter. So thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. We'll take that as a declarable conflict of interest at this stage. And what we'll do, I think we'll deal with it now, Mr. CEO, on item 4. So, Councillor Shoemaker, did you want to give the council a bit of a briefing before we ask you to leave the meeting as to your interest, exactly where it's located in relation to the proposed road development work? Thank you.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. My property is owned by my family. It's on the corner of Diagula Highway and Edenvale South Road. It's a cropping property, so we've currently got mung beans planted there, and we use, of course, the road network in that area to access that property. The Edenvale South Road intersection is, I guess, opposite the Edenvale North Road intersection, so just wanted to declare that I am a property owner in that area. I don't feel it does impact on my ability to discuss this issue. I do think this is an important issue as it is on the boundary of Division 4 and Division 3. So just wanted to make the Chamber aware of that potential conflict there and bring that for everyone's consideration.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Shoemaker. We'll now ask you to make yourself absent from the meeting and stay away until such time as the matter is resolved, at which point in time we'll call you back in. Thank you. Thank you all. So, councillors, we have a matter of a declarable, what seems to be a declarable conflict of interest under the current legislation. And so it's a matter for council to resolve as to whether or not we wish to allow Councillor Shoemaker to remain and participate in the meeting. So it does seem, in my view, that there is a declarable conflict of interest in that Councillor Shoemaker does own land immediately adjacent to the proposed development works to be undertaken on Edenvale North. So even though her property is on the corner of Edenvale South and Diagula, it is directly opposite Edenvale North. So it would be my view that there is a declarable conflict of interest, and that as such, council will then need to make a decision as to whether or not we feel that, despite the conflict of interest, Councillor Shoemaker can still act in the public interest in light of her ownership of that block of land. So it's not a matter as to whether in fact there is a declarable conflict of interest. The matter is, do we feel, knowing that there's that conflict of interest, that she can still act in the public interest in making this decision? So that's the matter at hand. Does any councillor wish to move a motion in relation to that, so that we can then debate on the matter? Councillor Potter, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that Councillor Shoemaker stay in the room, because I do believe that she will not make any decisions unless they're the best decision for the South Burnett.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Do we have a second of such? Councillor Duff, thank you. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Duff?
I agree with Councillor Potter, and also as Councillor Shoemaker said, she believes that she can act impartially, and I agree with that. I think she's it's not sufficient enough to warrant her stepping out of the room for the decision.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors, the motion is that Council resolve that Councillor Shoemaker has a conflict of interest in the matter, and notwithstanding the conflict, Councillor Shoemaker may participate in the matter, discuss and vote upon it. Those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Could we call Councillor Shoemaker back into the meeting, please? Thank you, General Manager O'May. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. So Council has resolved that you may participate in the matter, discuss and vote upon it. In light, despite your conflict of interest, Council feels that you will be able to participate in the best interest of the community. Thank you. Item 5 now is confirmation of the minutes of the previous Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting held on the 2nd of December 2020, and those minutes can be found at 5 in the agenda notes. Do councillors have a mover that the minutes be received? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconded, Councillor Froloff. Councillors, comments, questions, concerns in relation to the contents of the minutes? Otherwise, we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Thank you all. Resolution passed unanimously. Minutes duly received. Item 6.1 is the Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report at 12, and it's now my pleasure to hand over to Councillor Jones to present such. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and it gives me great pleasure to present the Roads and Drainage Portfolio for the month of February. And the following are current planned works for January and February. Our capital works program: Alfred Street, Kingaroy will commence curb and channel rehabilitation from March through April. Baillie Road at Wheatlands, widen seal overlay between Flats Road and Mondule Wheatlands Road. That will start from February, go through to April. Dingo Creek Car Park in Wandai, bitumen seal and line marking complete, bollards to be installed, and that will happen somewhere between now and the end of February. Markwell Street, Kingaroy, footpath construction, due to have started at the end of last month and will continue through February. Mercer Springgate Road, upgrade to the intersection of Mercer Springgate Road, Brights Road intersection to sealed standard, and that will go through the month of February. Mergen CBD, the footpath upgrade, Lamb Street, Mergen, stage 2 and 3, and that should be almost complete by the end of this month. Niagara Road, Boyneside, rehabilitation of existing seal, drainage construction and flood damage repairs. That was recommenced in October 2020 and will continue through to May 21. Peterson Drive to Binga, widening existing sealed road near Summerfields Lane. That started in December and continuing through February. And at the back of this report, you can find it on our web, that you can see some of the construction there with the culverts being in place, well, put in place. Rural Road, upgrade to bitumen sealed standard. That will start in March and continue through to May. Wheatlands School Car Park, the school park upgrade, started in December 21 and will be hopefully completed by the end of February 21. Our key highlights below is the average cost per kilometre of the last 2 years of the South Burnett Regional Council bitumen reseal program. Price variations occur between different roads and streets due to different seal widths, more efficient preparation works and efficient seal design and program management. So in 2021, reseals total per kilometre 20,272. In 2019-20, the reseals total per kilometre was 32,181. So you can see a remarkable $12,000 turnaround in the works that have been done. Our gravel resheeting and heavy formation grade, at the moment we're on Greenwood Creek Road. That should almost be completed now. It was going through the month of January. May have snuck into the start of February, but I think it's pretty close to being done. Kingaroy Burrendown Road, gravel resheet, heavy and medium formation grade, and that will continue through to the end of February. Maidenwell Upper Yarraman Road, gravel resheet, that will take place through the month of February. Memorandum Gordonbrook Road, heavy formation grade and heavy shoulder grade, that will start at the end of January, continue through February. Now, Memorandum Gordonbrook Road is a road that we've received a lot of feedback from, and I think we're making good results there. The work that's been undertaken so far, I've had good feedback from residents that live along there. Patrol grading, we're at Barkers Creek Flats. I won't run through all the different road names. They're all there on the website. There's such a large amount of names, but we're on Barkers Creek Flats, Boyneside, Brooklands, Charleston, Cushy, Dangor, East Nanango, Goodya, Hodgley, Canoon, Melrose, Nanango, South Nanango, Tingura, Wilkesdale and Warrulan. So right across our region you can see that there's some patrol grading going on. Our roadside slashing and boom mowing, another section where we've copped a lot of heat over the last month or so during Christmas and whatnot, but taking into account the amount of rain that we've had, I think the men and women have done a very good job trying to keep up with the growth of the grass. But you can see Alice Creek, Barkers Creek Flats, Bonaire, Banarkin North, Blackbutt North, Blackbutt South, Bowie, Boyneside, Brooklands, and the list goes on. Chapinga, Coolabunya, Crownthorpe, East Nanango, Glenrock, Hodgley, Inverlaw, Ironpot, Kingaroy, Katoba, Cumbia, Maidenwell, Manyang, Mamarambi and Melwood. So again, another widespread section, and it continues on. Moffatdale, Moondoona, Mergen, Nanango, all going through January, February, March, all these continuing circulation of our slashers and mowers. The slashing program currently has 4 council slashers and 3 contractor slashers assisting with the current workload of roadside slashing. So our completed works that are for noting in our capital works section, the bitumen reseal program, bitumen resealing various roads for 2021, well underway, and they're doing a good job right across our region. Bunya Mountains car park upgrade, reinstatement of Bunya Avenue pedestrian access, upgrade of current footpath and car park. That's been well received up there because the amount of visitors that the Bunya Mountains are receiving at the moment due to COVID has grown enormously, and that is a major improvement as far as safety goes up there. Burrow Street, Wandai, drainage improvement works for Wandai Sprints off-street parking. That's completed. Our gravel resheeting and heavy formation grade, all been gravel resheeted, these ones. Old Yarraman Road, Reedy Creek Road, Silers Road, Ushers Road, West Warrulan Road and Weckers Road, and Silverleaf Road, reseal prep, heavy shoulder grading and gravel patching. Our patrol grading, we've been in Belogie, Bowie, Coolabunya, Cushney, Hodgley, Tingura and Wilkesdale. Our roadside slashing and boom mowing, again, we go Belogie, Bonaire, Bowie, Boondoomba, Braguda, Bull Camp, Chapinga, Corndale, Dangor, Geelong, East Nanango, Glen Goodya, Gordonbrook, Inverlaw, Johnston, Kingaroy, Nanango, Runnymede, Sandy Ridges and Wattle Camp. That is the end of my presentation of the roads and drainage portfolio, Mr Mayor, for the month of this February, and I'd like to move that that be accepted. And just before closing, again, I'd just like to congratulate the men and women out there doing a wonderful job trying to keep up with the services that the people of the community expect.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillors, questions, comments in relation to the portfolio report? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say that I'm really excited about the Bayou Road getting another section done, and also that Wheatland School car park. I know they're very excited about that project, so they're 2 really good news stories. But I did want to say that the slashing, I'm really concerned about the slashing. I'm getting lots and lots of people that are very upset about what's happening with slashing and asking where are the slashes. And I had a school bus driver has cited that on the Mergen Road where it joins onto the William Webber Road that is actually seriously dangerous, and he's been told 2 weeks until we get to that, and I just don't think that that's good enough. I'm really concerned about what's happening with our slashing, and I just wanted to get some comments from the relevant, like the acting general manager about around where to from here.
Councillor Duff, if I could just interject. Item 6.11 for everyone's information too. There is item mayoral request slashing service levels. So that will certainly be addressed later in the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Other councillors? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of things from me. I also want to second Councillor Jones' comments about the Bunya mountains, the work that's happened up there. I've been up there quite a bit lately, and so pleasing to see people not walking on the road, walking on the designated pathway. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a top job, and it really has set off the top of the mountain. So thank you very much to the team. I think it's a really great improvement and great to see people using it. So thank you. I wanted to point out, I'm really, really impressed by the key highlight that we were able to find some cost savings. And I just wanted to ask the question in terms of, like, I know we've been given some information here around more efficient preparation works, efficient seal design and project management. I imagine $12,000 a kilometre across our region is a significant cost saving for the people of our region. And I think for me, it's testament that, you know, continuous improvement is definitely something that we are aiming for and working toward. So I was just hoping the staff might be able to elaborate a little bit more on that project and how they come about that process in terms of finding those cost savings. And my second question was just in relation to the Peterson Drive works. I just wondered, you know, if they're on schedule to be completed on time and what's happening in that area. So they're my two questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Manager Darcy, Manager Searle, would you want to address those questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Just in regards to the bitumen reseal program and the comparison between this financial year and last financial year, that rate is per kilometre rate, and what it shows in terms of, particularly in terms of the reseal preparation work that we did this year compared to last year, we did a lot of very significant preparation work last year, and a particular road comes to mind out west, West Boondooma Road, where we had major reconstruction, major preparation work. That compared to this year, where we were fortunate that we didn't have the significant preparation work, that makes a big difference in terms of the cost per kilometre. You also have differences in seal width. So if you've got a seal to do in town, typically your roads might be 12 metres, 14 metres wide, compared to some of the narrower sealed roads we have out, particularly in the rural areas, might only be 4 metres. So that makes a big difference in terms of a rate per kilometre. We were fortunate in terms of our project management to improve in terms of having one supervisor responsible for the seal program and the reseal preparation work, in which case we found that we're a lot tighter in terms of the quality and the scope of work. In terms of the seal design, we were able to reduce the kerosene content from about 6% down to 2%, which was a savings as well. We also found that this financial year, the price of bitumen, similar to the price of fuel, has come down. So there's a benefit, you know, in terms of the actual price per tonne that we pay was indeed a plus for us. So all in all, it's yeah, we have had a successful reseal program this financial year. We were budgeting $4.40 per square metre with the reseal program. We've come in at about $4.20 per square metre, so slightly under. The second question was regarding Peterson Drive project. So that's actually a TIDS project. The budget is $470,000, partially funded through the Transport Infrastructure Development Scheme, which is funded through the state. So our team's been working on that, and you can see some photos of some of the drainage improvements. If you're near Sommerfeld's, there is a dip in there which we're taking out. We're on track to complete that by the end of this month, I believe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No further questions.
Thanks very much, Councillor and Manager Searle. Okay, well, councillors, no further questions. Those in favour that the portfolio report be received? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Let's move on to item 6.2 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting, which was held on Thursday, the 17th of December 2020 at 22. The minutes of the meeting contained within the agenda. Meeting was held in the Alpha Bravo meeting rooms at Nanango, the South Bennett Regional Council, on Thursday, the 17th of December 2020, and are provided to note and consider. And I would therefore move that Council receive and note the attached minutes and recommendations of the Traffic Advisory Committee meeting held Thursday, 17 December 2020. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillors wishing to raise questions, concerns, commentary. Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of questions from me, just in relation to item 1 on the meeting minutes regarding the Youngman King Street crash data. I was just hoping the staff might be able to provide a bit of an update around the crossing in regards to that matter, and just a broad update about the issue. And the second one was also just in relation to the dangerous driving at Munya Street. I note there it says that the traffic data has been collected, regulated speed 50 kilometres an hour. However, average speed range identified between 55 and 60 kilometres to an hour. Speed is generally in alignment with posted signage with few outliers as general for Kingaroy. Speed assessment has been forwarded to Queensland Police. I know this is a significant issue for the people living in that area, so I just wanted to ask some questions about if there is anything we can do in terms of speed bumps or anything similar to the Fisher Street scenario to help slow traffic in that area. So they're just my 2 questions I'd like a little bit more information about, if possible.
Thank you, Manager.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. So with Youngman King Street, this is an item that has been on the Traffic Advisory Committee for a few months now. We have been working closely with the Department of Transport and Main Roads around what can be done at that particular intersection. It has some deficiencies, and it is a known issue with the quantity of turn-off traffic there. The data that is up there is around some of those turning movements and predominantly around heading from south to north as well. So we've got just a parking lane adjacent to the through lane heading north. But generally speaking, it's because of the nature that we do have 2 intersections in very close proximity with an ergon pole right in between those 2 intersections. So we've got King Street and John Street, probably only about 20 to 30 metres apart. It's very, very close. We are working closely with the state government on trying to come up with a solution to turn that into a T intersection. It needs improvement to assist the users of that area. And what it will do is also looking to try and create a right turn lane to go into King Street. We have been advocating this with the state for some period of time, and did look to nominate that under black spot funding. It would have been probably in June, July of last year. So we are looking to hopefully get an outcome on that in the near future, and we'll look to report back to council once that becomes known. In addition to your second question around Munya Street, the data was installed, I'm thinking it was in about the 3rd quarter of last year, and essentially that what that identified, that there was a fair quantity of urban traffic that is consistent with a lot of the urban use of that area of Kingaroy. You're absolutely right in the fact that it is very similar in profile to Fisher Street due to coming down the hill. It does create some speed issues associated with it, but what was observed was that the majority of people are trying to do the right thing through there, noting that it is an urban area, and as such they do need to be trying to conform with that 50 km/h speed environment. So it wasn't really a surprise that the data came back being 55 to 60. If it was higher, I I think we would need to look at progressing some measures in order to assist with trying to drop that speed back to something in the vicinity of 50 to 60. But generally speaking, I think what we were really observing is that due to the sheer data sample, there was very few numbers that were well in excess of the 60. So the concerns that were raised, I think, were around those outliers, but the general behaviour in that area is generally conforming.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. Just going back to the Youngman King Street, certainly recognise the challenges with that intersection. Just noted in the minutes, DTMR have requested further clarification regarding the rail trail cross point and SBRC to send layout imagery. I just wondered if you might be able to elaborate a little bit on that as well, because I certainly recognise how important it is to get rail trail users safely across the road. And I know it's something Council's been working on.
Yeah, thank you. You're absolutely right. It is a very challenging area of our road network on the northern side of Kingaroy. We do have a lot of movement, and in particular off the back of the service station that has been developed over the last 2 years through there. That has also contributed to some of the commercial traffic entering and exiting that establishment on its northern boundary, which is directly adjacent to the rail trail. So we have a lot of competing interests around that particular area. And what it does is actually impacted on the footprint of what we would like to do at King Street. So we've had to work fairly hard in trying to identify what are the key constraints. We're trying to get a safe intersection that will assist with those movements. The crossing of the rail trail across the highway is of great interest. We are trying to work with Main Roads around something that is going to be fit for purpose in that particular area, because there is if we look to make it too large, it starts to impact on the turning movements of the commercial vehicles entering and exiting the service station, as well as it will start to impact on the envelope of the turning lane to turn into King Street as well. So we're trying to get a lot of items rectified within a short length on the road, but we need to make sure that we work with the department in getting those outcomes.
Thank you, James. No further questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ask a couple of questions. The first one is Tangerine Creek Bridge. So I don't know whether this is to you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Manager Darcy, or whether it's to Councillor Jones. But where are we at with the Tangerine Bridge? And also with the crossing at the hospital, it said, I've just noticed it said here, they've elected to not to progress this request. So what do we as a community have to do to get that crossing at the hospital, which we've been asked for quite a few times from the community on that main road?
So item one, around the Tangerine Creek Bridge, there was some discussions held at the TAC meeting, and this has been a long-standing item between us and the state and with the committee in general. But the state are looking at that fairly closely and looking to do a business case on what options are available to them with that structure. For those who aren't aware, Tangerine Creek Bridge is located on Kingaroy-Kuya Road and is at the bottom of a fairly steep descent. There has been some vegetation and visibility issues that have occurred, and there's been clearing over time in that general area to assist with that visibility. To elevate this further, there's also been some investigations by Main Roads in looking to reduce the speed down there due to a near miss that occurred down there late last year. And the state are very aware of council's interests in looking to make that area a lot safer for the commuters through there, and looking forward to seeing what they may bring back at the next TAC meeting that we have, just to help inform our committee, but then also bringing that back to council for discussion. Item number two, around the possibility of the refuge at the pedestrian crossing on Youngman Street. That was an item that came on the table at the meeting. We weren't aware of the discussion prior to the meeting, and I wasn't aware at the time of there being any interest from council around that being installed. I'm happy to go and approach the department if we'd like the item to come back onto the table for further consideration.
Good, thank you, Manager. Just on that Tangerine Creek Bridge, when's the next meeting of the TAC, Councillor Manager?
They're held quarterly, Mr Mayor, so it would be in March.
In March. I'm just wondering, I can see where several requests have been made to the Department of Main Roads to reduce that speed limit to 80 kilometres. And I know many of us travel that road regularly. We have had a near miss there going back 3 or 4 months with a bus and a truck. And the council is in favour of the speed reduction to improve sight distance before the bridge upgrade works are undertaken. I guess at this stage we've probably got nothing to report in terms of where that's at in terms of response from DTMR, and I suppose that being the case, I would certainly be keen to see that that's pursued further in the March meeting with the TAC and followed up with DTMR, because I would think that from a public road user safety point of view, that's pretty high on our priority in the terms of the status of the bridge, particularly getting that 80 kilometre signage. Did you want to add anything to that, or is that something we can discuss in April once that March meeting has been conducted?
Yeah, certainly can, Mr Mayor, around the fact that we'll look to continue that discussion into March. They've highlighted those as actions that they were going to address, and I'm not familiar at this point in time whether that's actually been actioned or not, but at the same time, if that has been, happy to bring it back for further discussion at this committee.
Yeah, thanks very much, Manager. The other one was just on the Bunya Highway where we turn right onto Baramba Road. We know that has previously caused an issue where there was a multiple fatality there going back a few years. DTMR then reduced that section of road down to 60 kilometres an hour for a period of time. I believe they undertook some form of works and then increased it back to 100 kilometres an hour. I see now that there's some variable message signage boards going in there. Councillor Jones, Manager, is there any update on what that really means? What are we talking about there when we talk about these signage boards?
Just what we are calling VMS boards, or variable message signage boards, are very much the signage that you would see actually on Youngman Street and Haley Street right now, highlighting the Kinroy Transformation Project. It's around illustrating messages to the community so they're familiar with the environment that they're coming into. The department were indicating late last year that they were going to have a similar board erected in that area to assist with some of the wet weather that we do frequent through this time of year. Personally speaking, when I've been up in that area in the last month, I haven't witnessed it, that being sighted up there, and it is something that happy to go and have a discussion with the department on whether that is intended to occur at all or whether it hasn't occurred, and the opportunity may not exist for this year.
Yeah, thanks very much, Manager. We'd be happy just to have that followed up and brought back to the next meeting in terms of where the department's at with the installation of those boards in wet traffic where we have heavy vehicles, trucks moving through that area. That would be appreciated. The other one was in terms of the relocation of the Wundoy bus stop, update to be provided at a future meeting. Any updates on where that one's at, Manager, at this stage?
Mr Mayor, we didn't have a lot of information at this particular meeting, but we wanted to create an item for discussion just to help with understanding what people's observations were, because it is a multi-dimensional committee. We wanted to just understand what the issues were, particularly from like a police perspective as well, just to understand what the background is external to council. It is a current item. We'll be looking to discuss it further at the March meeting. So I don't have anything to offer for today, but happy to report on it in the future.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Manager. Happy to have that come back after the March meeting. Thanks very much. Councillor Jones?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just James has done a very good job of summarising all those questions that have been directed with the Youngman and King Street. DTMR are very cooperative and wanting to come to a resolution with that, and that rail trail crossing is going to have a a significant bearing on what happens there and all that sort of stuff to try and get those people safely across that road. So DTMR are working and well aware of the significance of that intersection there on Youngman and King. Just your questions around the dangerous driving at Moonya Street. James alluded to, we've done the speed counts and traffic speed and all that sort of stuff, and the police, and I highlight the word few in there. There was only a few outliers which put that average up. It wasn't hugely large numbers, but they are certainly aware of it and they've got that information moving forward. And the Bunya Highway, Mergen, Baramba, the one that you highlighted there, that signage, if you've seen them, it's slippery when wet, cars and all that sort of stuff, the crossover lines, that's the sort of signage that'll be going up there. I did say to DTMR, ask them about the possibility of any sort of construction work there to take away the amount of water or the water's coming over, but Vince from DTMR certainly said that there was a massive amount of work done around there, and I don't know that there was too much more that they could possibly do in that area. And just on the proposed speed limit reduction at Tangerine Creek Bridge, there's been some funding that has been allocated from DTMR for prelim design works and all that sort of stuff moving forward on that particular bridge. So that bridge is certainly, as James has alluded to, starting to take priority, and a lot of people in the DTMR section and the state government are taking notice. So this TAC is a very useful tool for us to get our messages out and highlight the dangerous areas across our region. So yeah, hopefully that just backs up what James has just said, but everything's sort of taking shape and moving forward in a positive direction in all those.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Other councillors? Councillor Duff?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. I'm just wanting to find out about the car parks and crossings to be moved back from Gore Street intersection to reduce traffic congestion, because that Gore Street, it's school time, the whole of Gore Street is just covered in cars, and instead of the people using out the car park the council actually built for that purpose, they're all parking in Gore Street, and now you're saying you're actually going to remove some of the car parks and move the crossing. I'm just wondering what you're hoping to achieve with that, because I think if you move the car parks, like are you trying to push people to use the car park the council actually made for the school, or what's the outcome there?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Duff. This is in relation to the Gore Street, Dutton Street East intersection between the state school and the high school. We were successful in February last year on a STIP application that we put forward, and that is, as a result, we're looking at realigning the pedestrian crossings on both Dutton Street East and Gore Street, so moving them away from the intersection to assist with some turning movements, and given that it is around a school, it's high volume turning movements as well. So trying to increase the visibility, but as a result of that, trying to increase the safety as well by pushing the parking further away from the intersection. With the engineering guidelines that we have, we also need to have minimum distances from those facilities. And we also have a bus zone on Gore Street as well that isn't impeded as a result of the realignment of the pedestrian crossing. On Dutton Street East, we're also looking at trying to extend further car parking bays further west down to Krebs Street as well. So we are looking at the extension of infrastructure to support the loss of what happens up at the particular intersection. So we're looking at just relocating those bays adjacent to the pool, but also we'll look to complement the infrastructure that's been constructed at the State High School as well with their new building. We've been working with them on making sure that our future layout doesn't impact on their ability to access that facility.
Thanks. Thank you, Manager. Okay, councillors, council receive and note the attached minutes and recommendations of the TAC committee meeting held Thursday, 17 December 2020. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Item 6.3 is the infrastructure project management improvement, and that can be found at 28. So this is actually a infrastructure project management framework that has been developed. Council is currently looking to further increase its ability to manage and further reduce its project risk across its portfolio of projects, and can take a multi-layered approach through better planning with multi-year programming, forward design, improved project management systems, better resourcing and capability development. So the attached presentation provided to Council is an overview of the review and the implementation of an improvement program for project management. So it's very much a broad framework at this stage. The officer's recommendation is that council at this stage note the attached presentation on project management improvement, being the framework provided. Councillors, do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors, questions in relation to the project management framework that you have in front of you? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to take the opportunity to, with the staff in the room, just have a more detailed in their view summary of the presentation before us. I see this project as a key priority for council over this term, particularly in ensuring that, you know, timelines and budgets are set in a responsible manner and they're not over ambitious or, you know, putting us in a position where there aren't clear expectations around what we can achieve, when it will be delivered, the cost controls in place, who is responsible. So I'm really passionate about this project. I really want to see it done well. I can see the learnings from appropriate project management rolling out across council, and certainly I'd just really like to take the opportunity to, while the staff are in the room, to have a bit of a summary of the presentation, please.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. I think in terms of time frame inside the Standing Committee meeting, happy for that to happen. Manager, if you want to give us a 5-minute overview, and then happy to if Mr. CEO, if you want to run a workshop on this in a bit more detail at some stage in the future as a briefing for council, happy to follow up with that. But if you can give us a 5-minute overview at this stage, thanks, Manager.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Schumacher and Mayor. Just like to introduce Darren Cunningham, Council's Principal Project Manager, who works with Kevin in the works team, who's overseeing the development of this framework. In the interest of time, the project delivery you see before you is around trying to address a lot of the competing interests of projects and being able to tier them based on a number of factors. What we're looking at doing is introducing a 3-tiered model to address particularly the complexity and consultation that various projects may need to go through. So tier 1 is around the high degree of risk, and what that usually involves is that the projects are quite complex and do need to have a fair element of rigour investigated in order to understand what the risks are contributing to the outcomes of the project. We do need to go through planning and design stages. We need to engage with council. We need to engage with the community. There also may be external stakeholder interests as well from authorities outside of council, but then also needing to make sure that those elements are all brought back into a channel of delivery through the planning and works team to make sure that we are doing the best we can with what we know. So that will give us confidence around how that equates into the budget and also the timeframes associated with delivery. So that is at the high level. The medium level is probably more our traditional projects, being our road widenings and our road constructions. They're the elements where there is some degree of risk and do need design, but the consultation would not be as extended as what would be for a tier 1 project. And then tier 3 is around probably more of our run-of-the-mill projects around road rehabilitation, gravel resheeting, and our road reseals, similar to what Kevin illustrated earlier. The second page is around the gateway system that we're looking to bring in at an operational level. So this will come down from the tier approach around making sure that we've got hold points in place to make sure that we're addressing the concerns at the right times throughout the development of the project. So the 5 gateway tiered structure that we have is around a lot of the planning elements in the first 2 gateways, around identifying it and then planning it and looking to build it into design. The 3rd gateway is around trying to get it into the procurement and programming element of delivery. And then obviously Gate 4 is around the execution and delivery of works in the field. And then Gate 5 is around closing out the project, the financial reporting, the processing of those figures back into the asset register, updating council statements in due course. The diagram on this page is just around illustrating the whole of life aspects that go with any asset that's under council's ownership, and it aligns with the systems that were just mentioned. So the concept, planning and design phases, they align with the first two gateways that were just mentioned. The procurement and programming is in around that, in those sort of that red area, I suppose, that you can see on the cycle. And then obviously into the delivery aspects is also in that red section on the cycle. And then from there, the Gateway 5 aligns with the maintenance, renew, upgrade and dispose of assets as well. This is a whole of life cycle to help appreciate why we do what we do and why we do need to do investigations to support the assets that council owns. Just before we go off that slide, on the right-hand side is around understanding the risk discussion and making sure that we've got the budget and the level of service discussion correct, because we need to make sure that all three elements are working in cohesion to make sure that we are getting the best possible outcome. Acknowledging the fact that the risk with each job varies, and from there we need to make sure that we then review our levels of service and cost that go once we understand what that risk looks like. Service impacts is around understanding our ability to influence projects and how good planning and investigation work early on in the piece really does look to reduce council's risk. Associated with that is also time in order to achieve that. So as you can see from the graph, the earlier you look to intervene and do your investigations early on in the piece, you can actually look to deliver some good best of knowledge outcomes at a point in time. So looking at going through the phases, very similar to the gateways and also similar to the cycles that you would have seen on the previous slide. So wanting to get through that, those various phases of asset management, but then delivering that and then getting it into the business as usual processes of council, making sure that what we build through delivery aligns with our operations and best possible outcomes for community. And then if we're starting to approach our end of useful life, what are we doing in order to renew it as well, which is the disposal phase. The next few slides I might look to hand over to Darren to elaborate further.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors, CEO. Thanks, James. So the project management framework slide that we've got there, the key elements that we're focusing on is strategic focus of the risk around our project delivery of our capital works program. The key elements there being scope, time and cost. All relate specifically to the successful delivery of a program and each project within that program of our capital works. Some key elements of managing the risk, as you see on the left-hand side of that slide, is obviously all around expectations, our community and our stakeholders. The improved project management goals that we're seeking to achieve, and we've already seen some achievements so far in current projects, although this hasn't been implemented formally yet. Informally, we're using some of these key elements and achieving success already. So from a resource perspective, we've got the people. It's developing a key and dedicated team in project management. It's about managing and having someone accountable to that project from the start rather than just through construction phase. So it's managing time, cost and quality from the moment we come up with an idea for a project or a concept for a project through to handing it over to the asset owner. One of the key things through there is the process of managing stakeholders, and the key thing is communication throughout the entire life of that project. And also through innovation is developing the technology and the project systems as we move through, and a clear governance around everything we do. So the journey so far, it's been quite a rapid rise. 2020, we sat down and reviewed our systems and processes, determined the way ahead, and currently developing stringent quality control systems and methodologies to put in place. So we'll develop that strategic project management and control system that will manage our portfolio moving forward. So every project will be managed throughout its phase life cycle, to the previous slide where James had the gateways. We'll implement robust financial controls, and that will come right down to the operational activities on a daily basis from the ground on our field teams. So the data that our field teams are achieving each day will be reported, and we'll benchmark those against competitive market rates to see how we're going, and we'll make sure that we are competitive. So the timeline for the systems as we go through at the moment, we are on track. The Gantt chart shows there that we're in early February, and that's exactly where we choose to be, and with line with the systems of project management, we're keeping on track to deliver on time and cost. So we hope to have this implemented for the next financial year. We'll develop our program around that with our master schedule, our capital works program. We'll be up and running.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Manager. Probably just a couple of questions following up on that, if I could, Councillor Shoemaker. General Manager O'May, would this be something that could then be adopted in, for example, parks and gardens where there are projects to be managed under, for example, where we have external funding sources as we have at the moment? Could this be transitioned across and adopted similarly there?
Yeah, most definitely.
And is it something that, Mr. CEO, is this something that the framework would need to be adopted by council as such in terms of our governance process?
We would be bringing it back to council as far as a reporting. Good question. It's certainly something that we're looking at internally to rolling out across a whole range of organisation. And probably a roundabout sort of an answer is that councillors would be aware we've got the budget workshops, and also included in those budget workshops will be asset and service level discussions. So this will all feed back through that and to come into one pipe of approval process, I suppose, for want of a better way of putting it. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge the team here. I see this as just absolute gold. This project is really important to the future of council and the way in which we can find ways to extract best value for our ratepayers and balance our competing priorities. So just want to acknowledge how important this work is. Thank them for the summary and the update, and look forward to more information about this. I think starting in the parks and in the infrastructure portfolio is great, and then I can see the learnings from that spreading across the business. So I'm just really supportive of this project and thank them for the work that's gone into bringing this to the table. Certainly there's a lot more work to be done, but as you know, I'm always keen to learn from projects of the past and implement improvements as we go. So just want to acknowledge the team. I know they've got a lot on their plate, but I was really impressed to see this in our standing committee meeting so early in the year. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. I think it's important to note here, as CEO articulated, that this is part of an integrated process across council that includes significantly the development and implementation of the asset management plans of council across all classes of asset, which will provide council with a policy framework in relation to priorities as to service levels and the resourcing required to deliver on those service levels. So that'll be very important as we work through that over the next 2 to 3 months coming into the end of the financial year, and clearly will complement what we're doing here in relation to project delivery, community expectations, service levels, resourcing requirements around managing the risk associated with those projects. So there's a large body of work that this is tied into. Thank you. Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with what Councillor Shoemaker has said and yourself. Just because I think a lot of times we do these fantastic projects, but we don't just get it right because of the lack of consultation. And I've always flagged, if we could get that right, we could make our job so much easier. Because I know some big projects in the past, and Manager Darcy would be aware of some of the ones where we just, with parking and different things, schools and that, we just didn't do enough consultation. So So for me, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, I'd like to be able to think as we move forward that it could be right across all of our projects as Mayor suggested. But also, is it something that we could, when we do those projects, that we could all have, the council laws could have buy-in on it, that just say, well, we think that's a tier 1 or a tier 2, so that we're all on the same page around consultation? Because I know even with the Parks and Gardens this time, some of those projects, they were starting and we pulled them up because we heard that there was something going to happen. And if we could have flagged that we thought that we should have been involved, there should be more consultation. If we could have that discussion on those projects and make it sort of like embedded in our, what we do, that there's even if it's that's a red one or a green one or whatever, that's where we think that project is. And then you've got then you've got your community consultation, whatever comes with that level of project. I think that we all need to have buy-in on that. So just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Duff. I think that's clearly picked up here in the improved project management goals. We understand that this is a process that we're going to improve our project management systems, and some of the goals there are to define stakeholder communication. So recognising that councillors are part of that stakeholder group and making sure that councillors are appropriately consulted, and reviewing our current processes to ensure that they are fit for purpose. So if our current consultation processes, for example, aren't doing that, well, then refining those and developing those. And I'm sure they'll be taken on board as we further develop this, and your comments will be duly noted and followed up with as part of this process, Manager. Yeah, thank you. Okay, very good. So, councillors, we have the motion at hand that council note the attached presentation on project management improvement. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. On to item 6.4, which is the Levers Road speed limit petition at 38. Bit of background here, council. Petition was received by council on the 27th of November and noted at December's ordinary meeting in December, petitioning for the reduction of speed at Levers Road Tablelands back to 70 kilometres per hour. Levers Road is sited 6 kilometres north of Mergen and located between Crownthorpe and Boat Mountain Roads. A letter has been sent to all petitioners explaining the process associated with requesting a speed limit reduction. Levers Road is a rural road, and in the absence of a regulatory speed sign, defaults to 100 kilometres per hour. Traffic counters are being organised for February-March 21 to collect data and allow technical officers to analyse the road speed behaviour before it can be further considered. And the findings of this analysis will be discussed at the March Traffic Advisory Committee meeting and will be presented to Council at a future Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting. As such, we have recommendation that Council at this stage note the attached update on Levers Road speed limit petition. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors wishing to speak in relation to the matter? Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. 6.5 is second petition on Lenigan Road at 40. And so, again, a petition was received by Council in November, petitioning for the sealing of Lenigan Road. Now, Lenigan Road is sited off the Burnett Highway, 3 kilometres north of Nanango, and services medium-sized, predominantly 5-acre rural residential properties. Lenigan Road is an unsealed road that is 2.2 kilometres long and extends from the Burnett Highway through to East Nanango Grindstone Road. The petition is seeking to seal only 1.2 kilometres of the total length of this road due to the siting of the rural residential allotments. Traffic counters have been installed with the collection of data to analyse the demand of the road for it to be considered on the Capital Works program for sealing. Officer's recommendation is that Council note the attached update on the Lenigan Road sealing petition. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Froeloff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors wishing to comment in relation to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Froeloff.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Lenigan's Road is in my area, and it's between Cobby Road on the Burnett Highway and Runningmead Road. Cobby Road and both Runningmead Road are both sealed, and that I was approached by members of Lenigan Road owners and had gone to visit a couple of them, and while I was there, Lenigan Road is a thoroughfare for people to use the back way to go into Nanango. It is a real big dust issue out there because they don't do the 60 kilometres going down that road when they're going. They're pretty well hooning down there, and the dust coming off that road and on into the houses is quite extreme. So yeah, I'm totally for Lanigan Road, that 1.2 to be sealed if possible.
Thank you, councillor Froloff. Managers, just in relation to this, if I can just broaden it, ask a more broad and general question. I'm happy just to take this on notice, but we talked about the fact that we're going to be moving through a process of adopting asset management plans through council, set service levels. In the asset management plans for our transport infrastructure, will there be scope inside that to be able to set some priorities around which roads will be identified? What will the criteria be for the identification of roads that may that council would consider as high hierarchy of roads to be sealed in the future? Is that the sort of process we can expect to go through when we do the transport asset management planning?
Yeah, certainly, Mr. Mayor, you're absolutely right in that regard, because it does come back to understanding some of the data that exists on Lanigan's Road first, and being able to have some of those platforms and fundamentals in place to then contribute to the discussion of what do we do and don't do in how we actually manage that asset. So essentially it all equates to cost, and being able to understand the upgrade of that road, if it was to go from an unsealed to a sealed road, the degree of cost and for what benefit do we achieve associated with that. We do have, as highlighted, a number of rural residential residents that are seeking this, and it's been able to understand at that level of service, council has it before them to consider, is that equitable based on the hierarchy across the transport network, and is that fair and reasonable based on what is being delivered. The levels of service of discussion is looking at coming back in the coming months, and excuse me. So it will be an item that we will look to bring back over March and April for further discussion.
Thank you, Manager. So yeah, just wanting to confirm that as part of the asset planning process for the classes of assets that we are looking at, and because we have many, transport infrastructure is one of them. We know this is a big issue. We have a number of rural residential properties that would clearly be wanting or seeking the sealing of those currently gravel roads, but the asset management plan for transport infrastructure will give us the opportunity then to put some criteria around that, is my understanding. Yes, thank you, Manager, for clarifying that. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, and maybe it's a question on notice, but just was curious if for this past financial year there have been other roads in a similar situation that we have sealed, or if they're still sort of going through this process. Like, how common is it for council to make a decision like this one on the table?
Just speaking in terms of this current financial year, we do have two projects that are upgrading from unsealed to sealed. One is Williams Road. It's approximately 1.3 kilometres, and we've got that on the budget for this year to upgrade to sealed. The other one is Rural Road, approximately 700 kilometres of unsealed to be sealed. Oh, did I say 700? Apologies, 700 metres.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a second question to that, just an idea in terms of what it costs to seal a road that hasn't been sealed.
Those two projects, Williams Road and Rural Road, to give a context around that, given that we haven't designed this particular road, for Williams Road, 1.3 kilometres, the budget is $450,000. For Rural Road, the budget's $370,000, which is about 700 metres. So for Lanigan's, in the order of 1.2 kilometres, then a ballpark is $400,000 to $450,000. And that's qualified given that it hasn't been designed.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. I appreciate that extra context. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager, and interesting to get that information. I've spoken about the fact that we'll get a lot more detail around this in terms of hierarchy and criteria through the asset management planning process. But if we look at Williams and Rural Road as examples, can you give us a little bit of an insight as to what is the criteria that's determined? Clearly, traffic flow. What sort of data do we analyse when making decisions on capital projects around sealing of roads, and are they double lane, or what's the width of those seals that we would normally?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. There's a whole range of factors, in all honesty, around what contributes to what's going to support the network. So the underpinning all this is some of the data around understanding what we do have out on the roads within our region. We need to understand the volume of traffic, the type of traffic. Are we dealing with, is it just cars, or is it a mix of use with agricultural interests, commercial interests, and just being able to understand also some of the oversize, overmass interests that exist in various pockets across our region. We also need to understand, does it complement council's operations in business as usual? So wanting to make sure that what we do contribute to is going to be logical with how some of those links are all maintained through being smart with our operations, such that we've got, under Kev's management, is around making sure that if there is a job that's to be done on, say, Williams Road, and you've got a mix of sealed and unsealed roads, if they're there to address maintenance issues, that they have the ability with the labour and plant and to assist themselves with being able to do a whole of link addressing that issue, rather than needing a mix of potential crews in order to respond potentially to a maintenance issue down there. So it's around understanding what complements the network as well, but also, is there any other driving factors? Is there anything from an economic development point of view that's going to contribute? It might be a current issue, but it may not be a prioritised issue. But if we see an opportunity in the near future, is something like this going to complement a future opportunity as well? So it's about being understanding of what we have currently, but also looking into the future through obviously discussions with the council as to what opportunities may present themselves, and how does that contribute back to the budget considerations that you have each year.
Yeah, thanks, Manager. I'm happy with that at this stage. Very keen to flesh out a better understanding of that as we go into the asset management planning phase. The width of the roads, how do we manage that in terms of, particularly with shoulder maintenance? How was that managed, particularly with those two projects?
Sorry, I missed that, Mr Mayor.
Oh, you better just, I know obviously with a lot of our traditional single, our 8-foot seals, we get a lot of work with the shoulders, the edges drop off sharply, we get a lot of work, that creates a lot of work for us in terms of maintaining the gravel shoulders. Will these seals, what's the standard that we apply, the minimum standard for these seals now, is that a standard width that we actually mitigate the amount of gravel shoulder that we've got to deal with?
It's certainly preferable to have a wider 2-lane seal in lieu of the single lanes. You do avoid the edge drop-offs, and so the likes of Williams Road and Rural Road will be at a wider standard. I do have one comment just on the summary with James. Our workshop this afternoon, the roads corridor policy that we're developing, one of those particular guidelines is on providing some framework around upgrading, particularly unsealed to sealed roads, and so we'll go through the framework around that. As I say, it is a work in progress, and it's on the workshop for this afternoon.
Thank you, Manager. Very much look forward to that this afternoon, and I would expect that as part of our normal process, we'll be consulting the community as we move through the development of those policies and those asset management plans for those people in the community who are tuned in. Okay, right, well, we have that at hand. So the motion is council note the attached update on the Lanigan Road sealing petition. Those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you all. Okay, we're up to 6.6. Council, Sherburgh Road footpath pedestrian bridge at 42. Meetings have been held between South Bennett Regional Council and the Sherburgh Aboriginal Shire Council prior to Christmas to discuss the outcomes and progress of the pedestrian bridge crossing over Sawpit Creek on Sherburgh Road. infrastructure planning, informed housing and public works, project managers for the Sherburgh Road footpath, that we would investigate options for the pedestrian bridge crossing and investigate funding sources to complement it. Council officers have met with Wagner's CFT to obtain a supply and install price for a pedestrian bridge at this site, and this information has been passed on to Sherburgh and the DPHW, and we'll be working with Sherburgh Council on a joint funding application through the ATSI Transport Infrastructure Scheme, commonly known as TIDS, and that is due to be submitted on the 15th of February 2021. Councillors, we have the report, and I'd move that council note the attached update on the Sherburgh Road footpath pedestrian bridge. Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillors, questions in relation to the report? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question to Manager Darcy. I'm just wondering if you, one, attended the meeting yesterday with the Sherburgh to Mergen footpath, that particular meeting. I was an apology for that one, because I've had mixed messages about this application and whether they would prefer to put in an application for the road as opposed to the bridge. I'd just like you to comment on that. Thank you.
Councillor Duff, could I perhaps just refer that to our CEO, because I know we had this discussion.
I'll go
recently.
first and
Thank
then
you,
I'll
Mark.
hand to the manager. I didn't attend the meeting, but certainly we contacted the CEO of Sherburgh yesterday morning. It was confirmed again that the pedestrian bridge is their top priority. The road can go into the reseal program possibly next year, so certainly we'll looking at that. It just needs a reseal. We have asked them to confirm that in writing, but certainly the advice from their CEO yesterday morning is the pedestrian bridge is their number one priority. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Duff. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Billy, did you want to add anything to that in terms of where that works out at this stage? I know the 15th of February is coming up fairly quickly, so is that progressing? Do you be comfortable with how that's progressing?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Duff. I can confirm that I did Skype into the meeting yesterday, so via conference call. And just like to reiterate CEO Mark's comments, it's exactly in alignment with that. The discussions have been consistent with the CEO of Sherburgh around the fact that we are looking to put in a joint funding application to support the footbridge. What this does is actually complement the link all the way between Sherburgh and Mergen, because it has been identified through to the Department of Public Housing Works that they have a funding deficiency in being able to complete that link, as well as the fact they do have concerns around the crossing at Sawpit Creek. The road structure that goes across Sawpit Creek isn't the greatest asset on Council's register. We have highlighted that, and we had some concerns around them wanting to structurally connect their footbridge or their ability to cross onto the existing structure just due to the ageing condition. So as such, we highlighted that fairly early on back to the department around the need to do some investigations to look at an isolated structure that would exist in isolation to any future works that we do in that particular area, and making sure that that piece of infrastructure is going to support the needs of the community there as well. So wanting to make sure that there is reasonable amenity with it. We don't necessarily want them walking down through Sawpit Creek, because it has been observed over time that there is a lot of water that does go through there. On the eastern side of Mergen, there's a lot of water that works its way down to Baramba Creek through that direction. And as a result, we want to make sure that that infrastructure is going to suit the needs of that community and being able to link themselves back to Mergen. So as such, we are working on a funding application with the state. So it is brought back through the Transport and Main Roads Department. That is due, as you've highlighted, in just under a fortnight, and as such we are working on that at present. And it was reiterated yesterday with Sherburgh around wanting to work with them to have a joint application at the end of the day. We are working with them closely. We did have consensus that we would look to get some administration in place to support signatures from both councils to make sure that we are both on the same wavelength in wanting to advance this project further.
Thank you, Manager. Councillor Duff, you're satisfied with that response?
Thank you.
Good,
Yep.
thank you. Councillors, we have the motion at hand. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, I just do want to extend on that matter, and Mr CEO, please stop me if I'm stepping out of line here, but in terms of our standing committee process, we'll break for morning tea shortly, but before we do, just extending on that Cherbourg Road matter, we had a meeting, a joint workshop at the council, Cherbourg, recently, and I think there was some degree of consensus, not consensus, but some degree of appetite in the room between the two councils to perhaps look at progressing a representation to the Department of Transport and Main Roads, the state government, to have that made a state road into Cherbourg as such. I'm not sure what the correct term is, whether you call it a highway or a state road or a state-controlled road. Cherbourg is one of the few communities that doesn't have a state road into its community. So we have highways for our communities. Cherbourg is one of the few that don't. So I would like to move a motion off the floor, if I can, Mr CEO, have leave to do so, that council, move a motion that council make representation jointly with the Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council to the Department of Transport and Main Roads to have the, is it the Cherbourg Road, Councillor Jones? To have the Cherbourg Road recognised as a state-controlled road. Manager Searle, have I got my terminology right there before I move that motion? Can I have some advice on the technical terminology there? State-controlled road, DTMR? Is that fine? Okay. So I'm now going to move off the floor that council make representation jointly with the Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council to the DTMR to have the Cherbourg Road recognised as a state-controlled road. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Sorry, and that would be recommended to...
Yeah, that was, we'll just add the line
Yes.
in the front of that the committee recommends to the council, and then it will be dealt with formally at the general.
Yes, thank you, Mr CEO. Correct process. We can make a recommendation here, but that recommendation to be resolved needs to go up to the general meeting, which will, of course, will be on the third Wednesday of this month. So I'll read that again. Fourth Wednesday, sorry. Thank you, Mr CEO. So that the committee recommends that council, that the South Burnett Regional Council make representation jointly. Mr CEO, if you could just clarify, have we got that wording right there? So the committee recommends to council, the South Burnett Regional Council makes representation jointly with the Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council to the Department of Transport and Main Roads to have the Cherbourg Road recognised as a state-controlled road. Councillor Duff, are you happy to second that change? So I'll move that. Councillor Duff has now seconded that change. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Jones?
It just the word recognised after the Cherbourg Road recognised, is that the appropriate word? Are we just asking them to recognise it, or are we asking them to change it from a council road to a state-controlled road? Is there a need of an update on a word?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. The intent of my motion is to change it from a local authority road to a state-controlled road. So you're very correct. That's certainly my intention. Change from a local authority road to a state-controlled road. Okay, so I'll now move the motion as seen on screen. Councillor Duff, are you prepared to second that? So I have a mover and a seconder. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, I'll now move a procedural motion that we adjourn the meeting for morning tea and resume at 10:30. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor. Seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Thank you all. We'll resume at 10:30. Okay, Council, we might resume, so I'll now reopen the meeting. And we are at... Oh, we need a second for that? I'll move that. Councillor Jones. Thanks, Councillor Jones. So meeting now reopened at 10:47 a.m. Sorry, those in favour? Yep. Okay, meeting reopened. I never get that procedural stuff perfect, but getting there. Okay, so item 6.7 is update to standard street name signs and style guides at 44. And just a little bit of background on that. So this is an update here. And the recommendation is that Council, South Bennett Regional Council, adopt a standard street, blade and roundabout street sign. I know that this has been an ongoing body of work that's been undertaken for quite a period of time and has involved some fairly extensive consultation. So the report that we have at hand here today, Council, aims to update and standardise council street signs, street name signage, including roundabout signage that incorporate council's logo. The current street name signs have not been updated or revised since council amalgamations in 2008. Therefore, this has resulted in the existing signs across the South Bennett Regional Council inconsistent, as shown in the examples below on 45. So the update to signage will have a minimal resource implication, as its application will primarily be on an as-needed replacement when material has reached end of life or when material is scheduled for update. The update has minimal risk implications, as is a minor modification to an established asset and process. And the revision to Council's standard street and roundabout name sign conforms with Council's adopted logo and will improve street and roundabout name aesthetics and lifespan. And by adopting a standard street and roundabout name sign specifications, it will reduce any inconsistencies. Key to the update is achieving improved coordination, consistency and recognition of the South Bennett Regional Council brand. So Council, the recommendation is that the committee recommend to Council that the South Bennett Regional Council adopt a standard street blade and roundabout street sign. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing... Councillor Potter moved, Councillor Froloff seconded, sorry. Councillors wishing to speak for, against, raise questions in relation to the report? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the report is really good and acknowledge the work that's gone into this. I just wondered if the staff had any commentary as to, what are the preferred sign designs. We've been given a number here, and I do like the idea of being able to brand them with our branding. So I just wondered if the staff had any commentary as to their recommendations of the attachments provided.
Yeah, managers, did you want to add any commentary around the report at this stage?
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker and
Thank
Mayor.
you.
I'll look to hand over to Council's Senior Technical Officer of Works, Aaron Kerr, and welcome him up for discussion on this item. He's done a good body of work and I'm sure he'll be able to elaborate further on your question.
Good morning, councillors. I guess a preference that I'd put forward to you is either option 3 or option 4, because it consists both of the logo and also the banner that's underneath the signs. So the distinct difference between option 3 and 4 is the banner is top and bottom.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. They look quite impressive, actually, can I say? Just interjecting. Yeah. So your preference is option 3 or 4. You can see the difference there with option 3 just having the banner across the top. Option 4, that's taken out. Yeah. Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to elaborate, I understand from the report, it says that the cost of these designs with the coloured printing is insignificant to the cost of a standard street name sign. So I just wanted to confirm that work's been done, and basically we're adopting a template that will clearly have printed, and there's really no giant cost implications with the selection of the sign.
Yes, thank you for your question. I've reached out to manufacturers about the cost difference. Their answer back to me is there's minimal cost. It's basically based on the length of the sign, based on the name.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just the final question, just confirming, so these will be rolled out to replace signs on a needs basis, and eventually the plan will be that across our region there'll be a consistency, but we're all acknowledging that that's going to take some time to achieve. Yep.
Placed on it as need basis or a request from customer requesting new signage, and if they're damaged.
Do we do a part of when we're doing our program, is there a system in place when we're checking the condition of signage while we're around in the area? If we're resealing a road or gravelling a road, is that part of our maintenance program?
Yes, as part of our routine inspections, our inspectors pick up all defects, including signage, and they will end up on our backlog list and to be replaced.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No further questions for me. I think this is a great start in terms of uniting our region and spreading the brand across the region. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing the new signage when we get to that point.
Thanks, councillor. Thanks, Aaron. Councillor Duff. Oh, sorry, Councillor Duff. I think Councillor Jones has been waiting for some time. You happy to go? Okay, Councillor Duff, away you go. Thank you.
Just wanting to know, are you wanting us to declare our hand on which one we like today? Because is that the purpose of this report, that we actually say which ones, or is it just we're adopting a report that you are going to look into changing the street signage over time? So, I like option 3. I'm just declaring that.
Oh, yes, sorry, Manager. So the recommendation is that the report be referred through to the general meeting. And I suppose, we could, if you wanted to, Councillor Duff, we could, Mr. CEO, amend that motion to include a selection or recommendation as to option 3, if that's something that council had appetite for. Mr. CEO, I would imagine procedurally we could do that.
You could, or the reason it was written as it was so that they put into the public domain previous advice from councillors. You wanted to have a think and a chat, and so it'll go up to the general meeting with the dot point that council adopts a standard design being bang.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Clarifies that, Councillor Duff, for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm pretty happy with that. If we, I just want to just ask the question: are we referring to attachment 2 or attachment 1 with options 3 and 4? When Aaron was speaking before, what attachments are we talking about? The roundabout street names, or talking about street names? Which one?
We're talking about both. So the first recommendation that I made was for attachment 1, just a street name blade.
Okay, so street names, you're recommending options 3 and 4, and in roundabout names, you're recommending option 3 and 4 as well?
For roundabout street naming, I'd probably recommend option 2 or 3.
I'm happy with that, Mr. Mayor. I can work on that and bring it to the next meeting when we have our general next Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones.
No, you're right.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Froloff. Councillor Henship. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to signs, you have roundabout and street name signs. Have we any idea of the numbers involved across the board as to how many of these we'd be looking at? And I see it's noted that in 2008, since amalgamation, resulted in existing signs across the South Burnett and being inconsistency and a replace on a need to end a life matter. How many signs and how long would that take to implement across our region? If this has been since 2008 and now that's 12 years down the track and we've probably got some new signs up there now.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Henson. We're happy to go back and probably go and quantify that to the best of our knowledge and bring that figure back to you once that's known.
Yeah, thanks, Manager. We could perhaps bring that back as part of the report to the general meeting in the fourth week of the month. Thank you. Councillor Froloff.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been looking at these for a little while now. I do agree with option 3 and 4 in the street signs, but I did ask Manager Mayor Aaron, and that for the roundabout signs, I like number 2 and 3, but I did find out that we could put the swirl, South Bennett Regional Swirl. We don't need to have the South Bennett Regional Council name underneath, but we can have the swirl. We did look that up, so I thought that might have been another option, so it's not so crowded for those roundabout signs.
Yeah, so in response to Councillor Froloff's suggestion there, Manager, can we bring that, Aaron, can we bring another option to the general meeting to consider with the swirl but without the name on the roundabout sign, Councillor Froloff, just on the roundabout? So perhaps an option 5 that included that option 2 but without the name as such, just the swirl, just the logo? Yeah.
Yes, that's not a problem.
Thanks very much. Are you happy with that, Councillor Froloff? We get that other option? Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much, councillors. That's been an interesting conversation, and this is clearly something that's going to be important, as Councillor Shoemaker said, in getting that consistency and unification across our region. So, those in favour? Resolution passed unanimously. Thank you all. We look forward to that coming through to the general meeting in 2 weeks' time. Council, we now move on to item 6.8, which is the supply and installation of water restriction signs across the South Burnett towns connected to the water supply schemes. That's at 49. And just a little bit of a background on this. That is, Council currently has minimal or inconsistent water restriction signage, and this report gives consideration to the request to supply and install consistent signs in the South Burnett in towns that are connected to water supply schemes. As such, the recommendation is that the committee recommends to Council that South Burnett Regional Council adopt the standard water restriction sign as specified in Attachment 1, install water restriction signs in South Burnett towns that are connected to water supply schemes, allocates $25,000 for the supply and installation of water restriction signs in the 21-22 budget deliberation. Councillors, do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors, floor is now open to those wishing to speak for or against or discuss the matter further. Thank you. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I've seen these signs, actually Toowoomba City Council have them in quite a few places. They're out at Kingsthorpe, and they do make you aware every time you drive past them. So I think this is a great idea, and I think to have that unity again, like we're doing with the street signage around town, would be brilliant.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Other councillors? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Potter. I think education awareness when it comes to the importance of being frugal with our water, particularly with the current dam levels, is important. And certainly I think from a community awareness and education piece, the signs are a simple way of achieving that. I just wanted to, my only question was in terms of the budget allocation, it says the cost to supply and install is estimated at $25,000. Maintenance of these signs will be on a needs basis, so I imagine that will be minimal. However, it says currently there's no budget for the supply and installation of these water restriction signs in our existing budget. So I just wanted to check where the funding will come from, because I'm mindful if we reallocate money, there will clearly be something that we're not doing. So as a result of that, so I just wanted to check where that $25,000 is coming from our operational budget and
So Councillor, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, good question. And so the recommendation would be that would be included if this was adopted by Council at the general meeting in February, that would then be included in the budget submissions that would come forward to Council as part of our budget deliberations. And I imagine would perhaps form part of a small CapEx allocation. Would that be correct, would you think, Mr CEO? In terms of new asset, new infrastructure?
Just in terms of the individual values of the signs, it's probably more likely to come out of an operational budget.
So due to the low cost of each sign, that would be an operational budget allocation. And I imagine, Manager, that would come forward as part of infrastructure's budget submission to council for deliberation by council as part of our normal budget process.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that. Probably my concern is at the moment in our current conditions with the declining dam levels and the drought continuing, I'm just probably keen to understand if we wait until the 2021-22 budget, I imagine that's going to be some 6 months down the track. So just wondered if there was opportunity to maybe fast track this, or what was happening in that space. Am I being clear? I guess my concern is if we wait until the budget deliberations, which I understand the process, thank you, but certainly my concern is with the current declining water levels in our dams, would it be better to fast track this project?
Can I ask you a question? So you would be, if I'm hearing you, rather than 2021 budget, it would come up for the third quarter budget review this year. Is that where you're going?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So then that would be, the third dot point would be considers the 25,000 in the third quarter review. So we'd just change that third dot point.
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing, just with the current conditions, unfortunately, was that we were going to experience a wet summer, and I think many of us are still waiting on that wet summer period. So I'm just really mindful of how important responsible water usage is, and I'm thinking this project, if we wait, it just prolongs that education piece. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. So Councillor Shoemaker's proposing that the motion be changed such that item 3, it says allocates $25,000 for the supply and installation of water restriction signs as part of the third quarter review at 31 March 2021. Councillor Potter, are you prepared to support that in terms of an amendment to the motion that's on the table at this point in time?
Mr. Mayor, before council, can we just change allocates to consider, and then that way it gets put into the deliberations rather than it's a foregone fact? Then we can check and come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you. Councillor Potter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Froloff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, happy with that.
Thank you. Councillors wishing to, we have the motion on the table now then, councillors, as it reads. Councillors wishing to speak for or against. Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as education goes, because I don't live in the town and so it doesn't impact me, and I just, out where we are, we just do what we want to do with water. So if I looked at that and saw a level 2 or 3, I wouldn't know what that meant. So my question, I guess, is, does the community understand the difference? Probably some do they all? And if you were talking about education, I would have thought that maybe if you had like a pamphlet that, okay, you've got the sign that says level 3, but then you've got an accompanying pamphlet that you can pick up somewhere, or a fridge magnet that says what that means, because to me, it's just a figure. So, but maybe the town people just know, oh yeah, 3's whatever, that, you know, you water every alternate day or whatever, but I don't think that's actually what would educate people so much as the accompanying what 3 or 4 means. So just a question or a statement pretty much. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. If I can just say that, look, I think this is a really important initiative in terms of continuing to keep it in the forefront of the minds of people in the communities that have access to town water. So it's very much a prompting mechanism to people to remind you that, you know, we are in drought, we do have water restrictions, every drop counts, please be water wise. So I think it's very much about making sure that we're keeping that in the conscience of the community. I do feel that the majority of our town connected residents are aware that that information is available on the website, and the sign makes reference to that. So that's my view anyway, is that I do feel most people know that the days for watering, the odds and evens across the townships are clearly articulated on the website, or they can ring the council to get that information. So I feel that's quite well known, Councillor Duff, to answer your question, at least in my view. Councillor Jones, your thoughts?
Yes, excuse me, thanks, Mr Mayor. I have been an advocate for erring on the side of cautious when it comes to water ever since I got into council. I am 100% behind this, and I see it says here proposed water restriction signage, so there is room for change and all that sort of stuff. But again, there's people, I think this is a huge issue, and going back on conversations we've had in the past and major decisions we've made in this chamber, I think that it is not just the townspeople that we need to make aware of this water, the trouble that we're having and the dam levels that we have. Hopefully in the near future something will give and the water will come and we'll have dams full, but I think this needs to be broader than the town water people. Totally get it's on restrictions, but there is other outlets that affects our town water system. So I do want to see this cover the whole community, not just focus on those townspeople.
In light of that, would it be appropriate that we could include that these are also included at those points where others can access water from council facilities, these same signs? That being the case, Mr CEO, do we need to just perhaps tweak item 2 to say, do we need to tweak that at all and just to add that at all council water access facilities? And at all. Yeah, so as read now on the screen, Mr CEO, would that...
Yeah, you can. I mean, it clarifies that number 2 was broad enough, but yeah, that certainly clarifies the point, yeah, by all means.
Comfortable with that? Yeah, thanks, Mr CEO. Councillor Potter?
Yes, I agree with that, Mr
You agree
Mayor.
with that? Councillor Froloff? You're happy with that? Okay, councillors. Motion's on the table, as seen on the screen. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you very much to the staff for bringing that forward. An important initiative for our region in light of the water issues that we do have. Item 6.9 is a request for the installation of additional disability car parking bays at the Nanango Aquatic Centre. Can be found at 53. So a request for information has been received by the Infrastructure Department to provide design and costings to install an additional 2 to 3 disability car parking bays at the Nanango Aquatic Centre. As such, it is the recommendation that this committee recommends to Council that South Burnett Regional Council resolve the request to install additional disability car parking bays at the Nanango Aquatic Centre by 1, does not approve the installation of additional disability car park bays at the Nanango Aquatic Centre based on council meeting the requirements under the Disability Discrimination Act 1992, Disability Access to Premises Buildings Standards 2010, Building Code of Australia 2020 on street car parking, or approves the installation of additional disability car parking bays at the Nanango Aquatic Centre and accepts the loss of 3 to 4 general on-street car parking bays, acknowledges there is currently no allocated funding or budget for the installation of additional disability parking bays, and allocates $30,000 for the installation of 2 additional disability car parking bays in the existing 2021 budget, or allocates funding in future 21-22 budget for deliberation. So Council, the work's been undertaken by the officers. They've put forward some options here for Council to consider. Under the arrangements with standing committees, we are able to have conversations about these matters before we go to motions being put on the table, Mr CEO, I believe. One of the flexibilities of a standing committee meeting as against the more stricter requirements of a general meeting. That being the case, what I'd like to do now is open the floor for councillors to put forward their views. Let's have a conversation and debate on which of those options Council has appetite for. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think this is something we should do because Nanango is one of the few pools in our area that has the hydrotherapy. They have a lot of clientele that go to that area from all over the South Burnett. So I actually agree with option 2, that we approve the installation of the disability car park bays at the Nanango Aquatic Centre. But I do believe we should be talking to the people at the pool, because they had some really good ideas when we were there recently. And also, I think we should allocate funding in the 21-22 budget for deliberation. That's my choice, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, I think in light of the conversations we've had about trying to support people with disabilities in our community to access the services and support they need, I'm supportive of the installation of the bays if that's been identified as a priority clearly. My only question was just I wanted to clarify here. It says accepts the loss of 3 to 4 general on-street car parking bays. I'm just wondering, I know there's the car parking options at the back of the pool also, so I just wanted to better understand that impact if I could, because certainly I've been there with little kids and ended up having to park way down the road, and yeah, I just wanted to have some clarity around what that means, and are there other parking options in the area that could support perhaps behind? Is there maybe an option for improved signage or something so people are aware of those car parks? I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Manager Darcy, did you want to reply to that in terms of parking options?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker and Mayor. In relation to disabled and people with disability bays, they are one of the real few elements that really need thorough investigation and analysis to make sure that council's risk is being maintained in that regard. It is an element that also requires a greater footprint of car parking and the area adjacent to those car parks to support those movements. So it is around understanding the movements from the vehicle through to where they can then transport themselves through to the aquatic centre. The best location for this is actually out on the roadside, given that there is the footpath and the ability to traverse off the road shoulder through to that footpath as well. So in the illustration before you, there is that shared area, which is that chevroned area in between the two bays. So we do have a need for larger bays than traditional vehicles, but then we also need the shared area in between. So what that does is actually absorb additional square metres in order to accommodate those movements. And then we also need to acknowledge the fact that we're trying to rotate the car park up here as well. So what we need to do is understand that along the boundaries of these bays and transitioning back into the more standard bays of parking is that we need to then look at how we rotate the angles of those bays back into normal surface conditions adjacent to them. So that takes up area, unfortunately, as well. So we're looking at trying to make sure that what we do is going to accommodate the needs of the people that are going to use it, but we're also trying to accommodate council's risk and meet the standards at the same time. So it is just an unfortunate circumstance that due to the need of what we're trying to achieve, it does just take up larger area. Therefore, it will take up additional bays and of what's currently there. The item around the parking down at the eastern end of the pool, that is an area where we would need to then look at how they actually traverse up to the hill to gain access to the front door as well. It is quite a narrow laneway through there. I can offer some assistance in asking an officer to go and investigate, to look at that from a compliance point of view. That in itself would also trigger additional capital works funding that would actually need to be built into a recommendation back to council on what that value is.
I think, thank you, and thank you for the clarity, certainly. I just want to confirm, so are you in a position, do you think council has done enough thorough analysis of the parking impacts and how we might be able to mitigate those with this proposed solution, or do you think the team needs more time to consider this? How do you think we done our thorough due diligence and analysis as you were discussing?
Yeah, certainly. Councillor Shoemaker, I believe that we've done a level of due diligence to assist with putting a proposal back to the Standing Committee for consideration. We have installed similar profiles of infrastructure throughout our region. very similar to this we have installed in Mergen in the past 12 months. And from what we're aware is that they've been quite well received in the community up there. And putting this profile of infrastructure in also accommodates some of the comments earlier around the hydrotherapy use of the area. There is an adjacent disabled people with disability bay just to the north, but it is on a different rotation. It's at a curbside park, which is like parallel parking. But from my observation, that gets used with different orientations of vehicles. I have witnessed people that just park nose in, irrespective of what the actual bay alignment is. So we need to probably encourage a bit of discussion on that with the aquatic centre as well at the same time, just to help the people who genuinely need to use those areas have access to those facilities, because if we have people doing what they do, all of a sudden they don't have access to what they need, and then the discussion is around providing additional facilities like this to accommodate their users.
Thank you, James. I'm fully supportive of the decision to incorporate disabled parking into that area. I'm probably just really interested to hear Councillor Frolof's views and feedback from a community perspective, being that it's in Division 1.
Yeah, and come to Councillor Froloff shortly. Just coming back to the allocation of parking. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. You can see to the north of that existing concrete island there, Manager, that there's that shaded section, which my understanding is that current parallel park that's being used for PWD access. Of course, that's challenging when you're getting out on the driver's side because the curb is on the left side, of course. Is it possible to use that space to create another angle park there, or is that not feasible design-wise? Just to mitigate the loss of those three parks. I don't know, it was just an option.
Yeah, we can certainly consider that further. I think some of it is around the available width there as well, because they do take up a substantial width along the curb. So, sorry, the length of the curb, not the width of the curb. And whether we have the ability for the manoeuvring adjacent to the entry into the laneway to the north. I don't have an answer for you off the top of my head as to what that distance is, but it is certainly an item that would need consideration associated with that movement. And but we can certainly do the research on that and make comment on that at a future meeting.
Yeah, and certainly this would need to come back nonetheless to a general meeting anyway, if it's resolved here today to recommend this up to the general meeting. Maybe an opportunity to come back and give further information at that time at the February general meeting, should council choose to recommend this up. Councillor Henson, you've got your light on. Did you want to add something to that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, but you asked the same question that I was going to ask, but in looking at the scale there, where that existing concrete island is, I would suggest it's the same size as the already disabled park out in front of the swimming pool. In distance, just going by that scale down the bottom, and I'd imagine that would be the same area. So, Mr Mayor, you asked the same question that I was going to propose as well. So, yeah, I was just looking at the scale and the distance there. I thought that would incorporate a disability parking there without losing any public parking spaces, perhaps, if that was an option. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Henson. So, Manager, if you could perhaps take that on board, Councillor Henson, as we've articulated, give that consideration and perhaps have another option of design to be able to just reduce the impact on those public parks. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Froloff, did you want to add something in terms of your divisional views? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Nanango is a little town that has difficulty with disabled car parks, and that comes up constantly in Nanango, around the town, or in all places, even the main street. I totally agree that there is an issue down here at the Aquatic Centre, and that it does have the hydrotherapy pool, and they have been asking for ages for additional disabled car parking down there, but also the RSL has also asked about some more car parking there because they can't access, wheelchairs cannot access the back of the RSL down the main street. It seems to be a constant issue in Nanango, and if we can get more disability car parks in Nanango and in front of the Aquatic Centre. That would be great for everyone.
Thanks very much, Councillor Froloff. Councillor Jones?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just want to back up Councillor Potter's initial thoughts. This is the only rehab pool that we have in the South Burnett at the moment, and it is attended by a large number of people, old and young, trying to get rehab and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a necessity. I also agree that we need to look at it in the 2021 budget moving forward. 21-22. In regards to that, we've had some other suggestions as well of moving and reallocating money. So I just don't know how much more we've got to move around, but I'd like to see that in 21-22. But just again, 100% behind this, because this is a highly utilised facility and it's the only one we have in the South Burnett. And I do support Councillor Froloff. When you go into Nanango, there is a number of issues in regards to no disability parking in the main street and all the rest of it. But the issue that we're dealing with here today, I'd really like to see this go into the 21-22 budget. And certainly with the loss of the 3 to 4 car parks, on the other side of that little laneway that we talk about, the people that it's not a lot to walk and there is safe access through a pedestrian crossing and all that sort of stuff across the highway. And it also has the little access across the laneway. So, you know, for 3 or 4 car parks and to look after the disabled and the handicapped and all that sort of stuff in our region, I think for 3 or 4 car parks just to go the other side and maybe have to walk 20 metres, like, to me it doesn't seem an issue. It may upset some, but I think overall people would understand.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Councillor Potter, let's get a motion on the floor in relation to this. Are you prepared to put forward a motion? Thank you.
Yes, I am, Mr Mayor. So I'd like to put forward the motion that I first said with regards. Sorry, Mr Mayor. I'd like to put forward the motion that Council approve the installation of additional disability car parking bays at the Nanango Aquatic Centre and accepts the loss of 2 to 3, 4. Anyway, so A, B, and with number C, I would go for number 2, which allocates funding for future 21-22 budget for deliberation. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Do we have a second for such? Yep, thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors, we have the resolution then that this committee recommends to Council, as you can see on the screen, approves the installation of the additional disability car parking bays at the Nanango Aquatic Centre and accepts the loss of 3 to 4 general on-street car parking bays, acknowledges there is currently no allocated funding or budget for the installation of additional disability parking bays, and allocates $30,000 for the installation of two additional disability car parking bays in the allocates funding in future 21-22 budget for deliberation. We might just need to tweak that there then in terms of approve. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Okay. That's better. So we've got it on screen there now. We have a mover and a seconder. Councillors wishing to speak for or against the motion. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have a suggestion for the recommendation for consideration, just further to what Councillor Froloff, my apologies, had mentioned around the challenges for disability parking in Kingaroy, whether in Nanango, far out, Kirsty Shoemaker, where are you? In Nanango, I just was wondering if we should add an additional dot point there, which gives rise to the team to investigate and propose other possible solutions to some of the parking issues that you've put forward, noting that you may need a resolution from council, the staff may need that to investigate further work. So I was just thinking whether we put an extra dot point in there further to the discussion regarding the RSL and other areas of town, whether council investigates potential other areas in Nanango that could potentially use or benefit disability parking. I'm not sure of the right terminology.
No, Councillor Shoemaker, thanks very much. I think I've got it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good, thank you. I think I've got it. There's a need for us to review disability parking holistically across Nanango in terms of the RSL and a number of other locations as as Councillor Fryloff has shared with us. Councillor Jones, as your portfolio, what are your thoughts on that? I'm probably not keen to tamper with this resolution at this stage. I'd prefer perhaps to see that as a separate body of work that we do under a separate resolution of council. Councillor Jones, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you on that, Mr Mayor, but in saying that also, I just want to bring to the attention of the rest of the chamber that there is future works planned for drainage and all that sort of stuff up the main street of Menango, and those issues, I believe, will be addressed through the design, and it may be an issue to go over to Manager Darcy to just confirm that, but I believe that that will be part of the works in the future to address it up the main street, but happy to totally take on board. We're dealing with this issue today, and knowing that we're going to do or have future works planned for the main street of Nanango in regards to drainage, I think that'll certainly be addressed in that, and the RSL, to me, I can't see it being an issue to address the parking down the back of the RSL because there is plenty of room there, and I think we'll be able to do that on a separate motion. But take it in point that we can do it.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Manager Darcy, will there be an opportunity in response to what Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Fryloff's concerns for council to have a look at options for further disability parking in the Nango in coming months?
Yes, certainly, Mr Mayor. It is part of our assessment for all car parking throughout Nanango. There is demand and need for those bays to exist in the right locations as well. It is paramount, and understanding the demographics as well of the people who use those facilities is very important as well. So certainly happy to look through the various streets that we have in the Nanango CBD to see where we can site them, and making sure that we've got the profile of infrastructure in place to support that, but then also needing to quantify that and bring it back to council for further consideration on budget.
Thank you, Manager. Okay, we have the motion on the floor. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, so following on from the conversation we just had about disability parking more broadly in the Nango and the fact that there is scope for the staff to do the work on that, Councillor Shoemaker, would you like to move a motion off the floor that we seek a report from infrastructure at an appropriate time to bring back to perhaps, say, the April Standing Committee to give the staff 3 months to do that work?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I would very much like the staff to do that work and bring that back to council for further consideration. So that a review and desktop investigation for possible disability car park.
Can I help you out there, Councillor
Yeah,
Schumacher?
please.
Can I suggest that we simply ask that that a report be brought back to council on options for increased and improved PW parking in the Nango Township? That a report be brought back to council on options for increased and improved PWD parking. PWD, Liddell. People, yep, PWD parking in the Nango Township, and presented, at the, so if we go back to the start, the report be brought to the April Standing Committee meeting. You comfortable with that, Councillor Schumacher? That a report be brought, just take the word back out, thanks, Lionel. The report be brought to the April Standing Committee meeting on options for increased and improved PW parking in the Nango Township, full stop.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. That's,
Thank you.
That's perfect.
Councillor Schumacher. So you'll move that. Just before I seek a second, Manager Darcy, time frame, is that realistic in terms of 3 months to at least provide an initial report?
We'll do what we can to achieve that time frame, Mr Mayor. We'll advise you earlier rather than later if we can't achieve that, but it is something to work towards at this point in time.
Thanks very much, Manager. Thanks, Councillor Schumacher. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thanks, Councillor Fryloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Those in favour? Pass unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, let's go on to item 610, Clark and Swenson Road / Harris Road and Edenvale North Road / Harris Road intersections at 57. We will note that Councillor Schumacher has declared conflict of interest, and the council has resolved that Councillor Shoemaker may participate in the matter. So Clark and Swenson Road and Indale Road North House Road intersections. The report seeks to update council on the issues associated with these intersections. Recommendation is that council at this stage, council note the attached update on Clark and Swenson Road / Harris Road and Edenvale North Road / Harris Road intersections. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Potter. Yes,
If I may, Mr Mayor, I'm not sure the councillor would be the
Oh,
best.
Councillor Shoemaker, yes, sorry. I know you're very keen to put your hand up, but thank you very much. But yes, good advice. Thank you, Mr CEO. Yes, thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Mover, thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconder, any councillor? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, so councillors, we have any questions in relation to the report at this stage? Councillor Potter, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, we've had a lot of complaints on this road. Councillor Shoemaker and myself have been to visit people who live along that road that have to deal with the trucks that go there at 5 o'clock in the morning with their air brakes on, or with their compression brakes on, I should say. And the noise there is just not, it's not suitable for a town area. This is one thing I would actually like to see done possibly before, sooner rather than later, because we need to deal with these issues now, because these people are literally going mad with no sleep because of all the trucks. And I'm sure there's a couple of truck drivers there that almost do it on purpose, she feels, because they know they put in complaints. So if we could do something about this now, whether we put on local traffic only signs up, or do not use your compression brakes, or signage, something along those lines that we can do now to try and help some of these residents. The signs then can be changed at a later, to move to another area. But we really need to do something about this now for those people that live in that area. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Potter. And of course, the report does note here that once the data has been collected by the officers, they'll then be able to evaluate the options available on how to progress this issue further. So I'm sure we'll have those reports come back to council. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to back up what Councillor Potter has said. I can see also the challenges with this issue being that we are discussing the way in which heavy vehicles travel to and from Kingaroy, and with our major industries, including PCA and Swickers, located in town. I know that this is part of a much bigger discussion that we will have to have around the movements of heavy vehicles, and noting that regardless of the decision made, somebody is going to be impacted by the fact that there are trucks on the road. I did, however, just wanted to bring to the Chamber's attention an email that I have received from a resident in the area that I would like to share with you. Kirsty, we have lived on this road for the past 30 years, and we have faithfully paid our rates, kept our sidewalk yard mowed and tidy. We've taken pride in our little castle. Traffic has always been a part of our life. We've seen a traffic increase as estimated around us. We have seen a traffic increase as estates around us have grown, and many now see our road as a quick exit to the highway or maybe Bunnings. What concerns us most is the heavy vehicle increase along our roads at all hours of days and night, the noise of engines, brakes, speed, and deterioration of the road itself. This is impacting our life in a number of ways. These are just some of them: sleep deprivation, anxiety, the ability to have an uninterrupted conversation. The house vibrates at times as the vehicles pass, and we have a fear of structural damage. The ability just to turn off and relax. We've noticed an increase in these vehicles since the new entry point to Swickers was approved by council and completed. When the entry was on Barkers Creek Road, heavy vehicle traffic was seldom seen. The intersection of Clark and Swenson Road and Barkers Creek Road was given in excess of $1 million for an upgrade by state government to allow said heavy vehicles to easily access the new entry point on Clark and Swenson Road. My question then is, if this measure was put in place for these vehicles, why are they allowed to use Clark and Swenson Road to exit and enter the new entry point of Swickers, bypassing the intersection that was built to better aid access? I just wanted to provide that for some context, and there are a number of other residents in the area experiencing similar impacts. I certainly recognise the challenge we have ahead of us, and I certainly recognise, the importance of SWICRs and PCA to our region. So I recognise this is going to be a challenging issue. However, to find a possible solution. However, the residents' suggestions of some signage and perhaps a load limit in the area, I think, are things that could alleviate some of the immediate issues being experienced. So I just encourage council to keep a watch on this issue, and certainly for us to think about how this bigger issue of heavy vehicle movements through Kingaroy really is going to have an impact. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker, and thank you to the officers for bringing forward this report and bringing this to Council's attention, and certainly such as is noted. So we have the motion on the table that moved by Councillor Potter, seconded by Councillor Duff, that Council note the attached update on Clark and Swenson Road, Harris Road and Edenvale North Road, Harris Road intersections. Those in favour? Thank you all. Passed unanimously. 6.11 Council is mayoral request slashing service levels at 59. A mayoral request was received by Council's consideration for Council's consideration to act immediately to implement a comprehensive roadside slashing and spraying around guideposts and road signage program through the allocation of existing council resources and engage contractors as necessary to bring all state and local roadsides up to a high standard of safety and presentation by 28 February 2021. A little bit of background here, Council. So I suppose responding to that mayoral request, generally Council slashes 1,153 kilometres of long council sealed road network about twice per year at a cost of $165,000 per round. In other words, totalling $330,000 per annum. When $120,000 of boom mowing is included, the overall annual council slashing cost for the entire road network is in the order of $450,000. Council's current intervention level for roadside slashing is 3.6 metres off edge of roadway and exceeding 700 millimetres in height. And the target response time is 6 months for general roadside slashing. For vegetation obscuring sight distance or minimum stopping distance, the target response time is 3 months. Whilst Council can increase the service level on South Burnett roads, an increase to the main roads network is restricted by Council's obligations in accordance with the routine maintenance intervention level and response times published by the Department of Transport and Main Roads. Slashing on the 656 kilometre long sealed DTMR road network is undertaken around the time the height of the grass reaches the intervention level of 700 millimetres. Once the intervention level is reached, Council has a response time based on the road traffic volumes to action the slashing as follows: 500 to 10,000 vehicles per day, 3 months, 100 to 500 vehicles per day, 6 months, and less than 100 vehicles per day, 6 months. Except by specific direction, slashing is not undertaken for appearance, to reduce bushfire hazard, or to remove a snake or vermin habitat, as stated in the routine maintenance guidelines of the Department of Transport and Main Roads. Through the road maintenance performance contract, it is estimated that each road will need to be slashed twice per year, but it is subject to what is required. Council includes the DTMR road network in its routine slashing program to maintain efficiency, to reduce the need to float machinery and maintain reasonable slashing rates. Herbicide spraying on the council network is generally on a case-by-case basis. In the last few years, routine herbicide spraying activities on council roads have been minimal. Council has recently undertaken significant herbicide spraying activities, with the cost for the financial year currently at $45,000. So the recommendations coming forward here, Council, is that the committee recommends to Council that council accelerates the completion of the current roadside slashing routine program during the months of January and February 2021 by engaging additional slashers under the current operational budget at a cost of approximately $45,000. As I said there, you'll see in the financial implications that engages 3 contract slashers during that period. So we have that there at hand. Councillors, do we want to open this up for conversation, or do we want to go straight to a motion? Does someone want to move that first and foremost? So Councillor Duff moved. Do we have a seconder? We don't have a seconder for it. Okay, well, I'll second the motion. And I'll now open the motions on the table for debate. Councillors wishing to speak for or against. First of all, Councillor Duff, do you want to speak to your motion? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely think we need to accelerate the slashing. I think it's a safety issue. As I outlined earlier, I've had school bus drivers tell me that he's really concerned about one particular intersection. I've also had lots of customers saying that they're concerned about the safety, visibility issues. Even what's been said in the report about the DTMR stuff, when it reaches intervention level, 3 months, we've got 3 months leeway, but I think into the future we need to fast track that, because 3 months to leave those main roads for 3 months, or like spread it out over 3 months, I think is too long, in my opinion. And I think that we need to do this and also completely review our whole slashing program, because this has been happening for a very, very long time. I've been a councillor for 16 years and I've never been happy with the way the slashing has been done. And I've flagged it numerous occasions, and I just think we need to have a whole, I'd like to see a workshop around this. I'm happy to support this, but I'd also like to see a workshop on a better way forward, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same result. And I know that when we had the election, that was a big issue, was the grass was everywhere and people were upset about it, they were concerned about it. It's not just about visibility issues, it's also about aesthetically how you perceive your region. If you've got grass this high, people think, to me, it looks like we don't care about our region. So I'm keen on this one, but I'd also like to add another, whether it's another dot point, that we actually have a workshop on reviewing what we can do into the future, or whether we just have a separate motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Duff. Other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for bringing this to the table. I'm hearing what Councillor Duff and certainly what you have said about this issue, and I do agree. I think if it's a safety issue, particularly if there are people in the area sitting, like school buses and things like that, I think it's something that needs to be addressed. However, I do feel it would be irresponsible of me to allocate budget without having further workshop discussions about what we're currently spending, and also the implications of the drought and the season. So I agree that this needs to be brought up to a standard. I'm just wondering if we could have some more time to really workshop and discuss this, because I do tend to agree with what Councillor Duff's saying, and I do think it's a really important way in which the slashing of our region, the maintenance of our region, the way in which we look is really, really important to the way in which I think people look to living in a place like ours. I think if it looks nice, people look at our region and say, yeah, we love the South Burnett, would love to live there. So I fully understand. I would probably like some more information about the budget costs and the implications and what we're currently doing, because I also acknowledge that we do have resources already allocated to slashing. So I want to better understand how we're using those resources, and I guess, is the way in which they're programmed and planned the most efficient and effective way. Certainly I know we're going to have some very difficult discussions when it comes to this year's budget, and I probably want to see the bigger picture. But would like to hear from the other councillors. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Hinchip.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, councillor Duff and Shoemaker. I was noted in saying at the last meeting in relation to slashing, and I can appreciate safety issues with school buses and intersections and crossroads, but we still have to be very, very aware and the costing and the budgetary requirements to be able to fund this. 3 weeks ago, we couldn't keep on top of grass with the rain we had in certain parts of the district. Now we're going to be faced with fire hazards because it's so dry. I also like to note that our current staff, with what they are working with, in the miles we do, Councillor Duff, you would do as many miles as anybody in the South Burnett Regional Council. I personally have seen not only the council's slashes and tractors and staff flat out in the last couple of weeks, but our contractors that we've engaged, I've seen them Saturday and Sunday doing a fantastic job on what we've had to deal with. Now, when it rains, it is almost an impossibility to keep in front of it, because we all know, and as I mentioned, in our own house yards, you'll mow your own backyard 3 times in a week. Not possible, and with budgetary requirements to be able to keep on top of this, we have to, and I agree with Councillor Shoemaker, we've got to look hard at this, and there is safety issues out there, of course, with school bus. I have school bus runs on my road into town every day, and I look at them constantly to see just what the issues might be there on major intersections. And yes, let's go back 18 months, there wasn't a slash or a mower started because of the drought conditions we had. So, you know, it's a case-by-case thing, and our guys, I believe, are doing a great job with what we've got to work with, and we can't control Mother Nature, and when Mother Nature does, and let's hope she drops hundreds upon hundreds of millimetres of rain on us, yes, Councillor Shoemaker, I mean, we can't do enough of that, and I'm sure Councillor Duff would agree, but we're coming into the end of summer. The prediction with our wet summers over the last 12 months, you know, we were going to get a wet end of May, we were going to get a wet winter, we were going to get a wet start to spring, we were going to get a wet summer. Cyclones up north. We haven't had any of that, but what we have had is spur of the moment and some downpours in areas that makes this a very hard thing to manage, very hard. But I'd like to just reiterate that with what we've got and what the guys are doing out there, they will get to it. They will get to it in time, and then they will. And with what we've got at the moment, we now want rain again. 3 weeks ago, we couldn't keep on top of it. Now we want rain again. So when we get rain, it's a double-sided sword, isn't it? We get rain and we can't keep up with the mow, and we don't get rain and we've got, you know, the exact opposite. So I'd like just to be noted that I can appreciate Councillor Duff, and certainly there's some issues, safety issues out there, but I'm sure in time, and Councillor Shoemaker, I completely agree with her that yes, we need to look at this and workshop it, but at the same time, be fully aware of seasonal conditions and how that dictates and affects us as to the monetary side of things and how it can be managed. So I think we need to look hard and keep that in perspective. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just got a couple of queries. In my presentation of the portfolio this morning, the slashing program currently has 4 council slashes and 3 contract slashes assisting with the current workload of roadside slashing. So what we're saying, or what we're suggesting, is that another 45,000 will put another 3 on top of that, or does that include the 3 that's currently employed? Manager Kep?
That includes the 3 that are employed, so basically the 3 contracts.
So they're already underway, and
that's correct. Yes. So in response, in January we've engaged 3 contract slashes to supplement our 4 council slashes.
Well, I guess the $45,000 needs to be spent then if they've been employed, and they've already started their yeah.
So the $45,000 is within the current operational budget, so we'll manage that. The concern is if there's an extension to contract to additional slashes, then our operational budget will come under considerable stress.
So just for understanding then, for my understanding, the three current contractor slashers that have been already employed since January, that $45,000 that's mentioned here in the officer's recommendation is inside our operational budget and won't affect anything moving forward. So they've already started and that 45,000 has been allocated.
That's correct, councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Potter?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was actually contacted recently by a member of the community with regards to our mowing and spraying. Is it possible to try and cut costs to actually spray, put the spray container, the herbicide container behind the mower, attach it to the mower, because that would save, they could spray and mow at the same time. I mean, we all do it at home sometimes, so I'm just wondering whether it's a possibility to save money there.
Thank you, councillor, for the question. It is a conversation that we've been having recently. Apparently we used to do it a number of years ago, so it's one that my team's going to be following up to look at what improvements, what efficiencies there are available.
Yeah, thanks, Manager. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Certainly, I definitely want to see things maintained to a high standard, and hearing Councillor Potter, I think there are options that we should be looking at in terms of our operations and getting the most from them. But I just had a question in terms of our current operational budget. To really consider this, I just wanted to understand, so where we're at with the existing operational budget in terms of its expenditure. Is there room? Just wanted an update on how you're tracking with your current roadside slashing budget, and if it's looking to be on track for the end of this financial year with the current levels that have been discussed, as Councillor Jones has said, the 4 existing council workers and then the 3 additional contractors. So you could just confirm your current budget position, that'd be great.
Thank you for the question, councillor. So the current operational budget is approximately $6.8 million, and generally we manage that over the 12-month period. Within that budget, there are a number of tasks such as patrol grading and pothole patching and slashing, of course. There's not a separate budget for slashing. We will manage the overall budget depending on the highest priorities. In terms of slashing, as was indicated in the report, we typically do around about 2 rounds per year. At the moment, the budget is very tight. For this time of the year, we're slightly over, but that's one thing that we typically will manage during the year and look at what tasks, what jobs we have to do, and manage that overall budget. In terms of the service levels that we currently have, there's an opportunity in the coming months for councillors where staff are currently working through developing a workshop to look at our current service levels in conjunction with the maintenance and operational budget. So things like unit rates, how much does it cost per activity? There's an opportunity to look and workshop that in the coming months.
Yeah, thank you, Manager. And I think you're going to lead into probably, I just want to refer to Mr CEO. Councillor Duff raised a matter about perhaps workshopping this in terms of the longer term program. Mr CEO, what are your thoughts on that?
Given the conversation from the staff, the recommendation really needs to be changed. So it's no longer a recommendation to council if that's you're currently doing it. So the first line would disappear for my 20 cents worth, and then the council notes the acceleration and completion of the current roadside slashing because this is an information. A second dot point would be that a future report is brought to a workshop about the slashing program. Yeah. And so there doesn't need to go back to a general because of this is, yeah. And then second line would be, number 2 would be that future report is workshopped with councillors in regards to slashing programs.
March unachievable, Mr. CEO. Can we put a date around that? In
Yeah,
terms of
we'll
progressing it?
we'll feed it in because we've got the budget workshops about to fire up. So yeah, you can put
31 March, yeah. And, I'm just going to go to you now, Councillor Duff. Are you comfortable with that changing the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering whether it should be slashing routine program during the month of February because January's finished.
Yeah, I think Councillor Duff, we're noting that it's been accelerated during the
okay.
months of January and
Okay,
February.
yeah, all good, yeah.
Okay, so we're noting as such, past and present.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, happy with the changes.
Okay. Look, I'm happy to second that, to support that change as the seconder of the motion. So we have that motion now in front of us. We'll continue. Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, but in that, could I suggest that we add, as it's been mentioned before, engaging contractors, and it suggests the spraying as well, slashes and spraying of signs and guideposts. But I also just make it noted, then I'm sure our staff and general managers would be well aware that in relation to the spraying, can I just note, and for everybody's own reference, that spraying is a thing that under duress conditions has to be looked at very carefully. Like, we've gone from a couple of weeks ago, lush seasonal conditions, to now things are under serious stress. And it's regarded within the industry, the rural industry, that you don't spray under stressful conditions. So that's just something, if we could add in there, the spraying to be workshopped as well, within the workshop, because spraying is very important under seasonal conditions, and it's noted in the rural sector that you do not spray under stress conditions. Just to take that on board.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Henson. So we're just going to change that now to roadside slashing and spraying programs, workshopped by 31 March 2021, and we're noting the current acceleration of the existing slashing program. Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to add to that motion the fact that the workshop is in suggested 31st of March. Can I get that put in, that if there is any consideration to an extension of the period for these 3 slashes to continue services, that all councillors be notified before that happens? Something to those lines, please.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jones. This is becoming increasingly complex. Mr CEO, what are your thoughts in terms of that? Look, Councillor Jones, I think if it's inside the operational budget, we've made that allocation to the staff, and that would be an operational matter for the managers and the general managers. Mr CEO, if we're going to start putting conditions around when our managers can't make decisions on their operating expenditure, is that something that we should be doing appropriately, or?
Yeah, I noted the point. It's probably the report started off with a different intent than where it's ended up, I think. So certainly have noted the comment, and would prefer to keep it out of the resolution for the minute, but I have got it noted and we'll follow up on it. Yeah.
You happy with that, Councillor Jones? Yeah, thanks, Mr CEO. Okay, that resolves that. Councillors, if I can just speak to the motion as the seconder, and then I'll come back to Councillor Duff to speak as the mover of the motion. Councillor Shoemaker, you've had 2 opportunities to speak, so close off on you now. Thank you. So look, as you all know, if you follow Facebook, I've travelled the region extensively over the last couple of months, tripping around and doing the thing mobile around the region. And there is a lot of work still to be done with our slashing. I've got to say, we've had 4 guys out there, and they've been doing a good job, working really hard. Absolutely. But, you know, if you drive from Wondai to Proston at the moment, there is 5 to 6 foot high grass right on the edge of the bitumen road. That's a heavily trafficked road. I could name a number of other roads that I won't go into, but there is still a large body of work to do. And the work that the guys have done over December and January is starting to then come back behind them now. So if you go out to Brooklands, for example, the guys slashed that a few weeks ago, it's probably up to 400 to 500 mil already. And so it'll be at 700 mil very soon. This is the body of work that these 4 guys are trying to chase their tails on. And that's why we had conversations about trying to accelerate the program by supplementing that volume of work being done internally with contractors. So that just in terms of noting that. Secondly, I certainly very much support the need to workshop this and look at how can we most effectively and efficiently get our service levels right around roadside spraying and slashing, both in terms of our RMPC contract as well as our local roads. And I think feeding into the next year's budget would be a good time to do that in March. So completely support the resolution of the motion on that basis. Councillor Duff, back to you to wrap up before we go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm 100% supportive of the motion. Happy that we're going to support our current staff with some contractors to continue, because I'd hate to see us lose those additional contractors now, so they're so far behind. And the taller the grass goes, and if we get more rain, as Councillor Henson said, it's harder to control. Once it gets higher, it's harder to slash. Yeah, so just needing that to happen, and really keen to have it workshopped and try and get this right, because I understand 100% what Councillor Henson's saying. We have variable seasons, and that's why we have to workshop it and ensure that we can manage when we have these types of situations, that we're not just jumping at shadows and suddenly trying to grab contractors that we've already got that kind of stuff in place. So yeah, just keen to see this happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillors, those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, let's go on to 7.1, and it's my pleasure now to hand over to Councillor Froloff to present the Local Disaster Management Water and Wastewater Portfolio Report at 61. Thank you, Councillor Froloff.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors, gallery. First of all, local disaster management. The Local Disaster Management Group continues to work in cooperation across the region to manage key impacts on our community, including COVID-19, bushfires and storms. In addition, Council will lead a key project for the group with a full review of the South Burnett Disaster Management Plan to commence in February. The South Burnett Local Disaster Management Group held a quarterly meeting and annual exercise on the 10th of December 2020. QPS District Executive Officer and QFES Emergency Management Coordinator mentioned that this was one of the most well-attended LDMG meetings he had experienced in a long time, which showed commitment and great engagement from all agencies and was exceptional to see. The exercise, Dam Busters, was a disaster management exercise designed around the hypothetical but realistic dam flooding event affecting the South Burnett Regional Council and the Gympie Disaster District. The scenario worked through key considerations, drawing upon the concepts and principles of disaster management to respond to the impact and consequences of a major dam flooding event affecting the downstream community of Gordon Brook and Wilkesdale. The participation and engagement from both the LDMG members and Council's water and wastewater team was also commended by the district. Western Downs and South Burnett disaster management officers visited the South Burnett, the Bunya Mountains accommodation providers and also restaurants and cafes to seek their engagement around the community education and preparedness in relation to the Bunya Mountains Community Disaster Management Subplan. An overall of this subplan will be tabled at the March Infrastructure Standard Committee meeting. Water and wastewater. The following are the current planned works. The capital works for 2021 and the current water main replacements are as follows. Youngman Street North, Youngman Street North, trunk water main replacement. Reen Street, residential water main replacement. The KTP, Alfred Street, water main replacement. Haley Street to Hodge from Hodge to Scott Street, trunk residential water main replacement, and regional replacing 1,000 water metres. Class A recycle facility in Wandai, construction of the new Class A recycle water facilities at Wandai and the replacement of the reservoir roof at Arana. SCADIA and cyber security updates, and also the Gordon Brook Dam spillway design. Restriction and dam levels as of the 19th of the 1st, 2021. Bunduma Dam 29.2, BP Dam 11.5, Gordon Brook Dam 52.7 and Boo Bear Dam 20%. Key highlights are as follows. All towns remain on level 3 water restrictions. Council continues to monitor water storage throughout the region with current levels of Bunduma Dam as I'd last spoken about. Kingaroy water supply is blended with 70% Bunduma, 30% Gordon Brook, and with Gordon Brook Dam falling close to 50%, the water quality will be an issue should the Gordon Bunduma pipeline have an unscheduled failure or outage for several days. And I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank the residents of the South Burnett regional area for being very water wise during this time. Completed capital works. The reactive works for the year to date is council staff have attended 61 sewer requests this financial year, and council have attended 489 water requests for this financial year. Completed capital works for noting is the replacement of the reservoir roof in Scott Street and Wandai and the sewer relining and pipe and manholes in Wandai, Mergen and Nanango. Infrastructure series, Narita Water and Wastewater Treatment Plant Tour. In November, council staff hosted a tour of the Narita technology at the Kingaroy Wastewater Treatment Plant for the purpose of knowledge sharing, collaboration with other councils and sharing good practices and systems improvements. The visit provided an overview of the performance of technologies and assets, for example, instruments, processes, controls and resources, etc. This Kingaroy wastewater treatment plant was constructed by Aquatech Maxicon, completed in 2016 and is owned and operated by the South Burnett Regional Council. The technology was invented by Mark van Loosdrith of the Dreft University of Technology in the Netherlands and developed by the Dutch company Royal DHV. The plant is the first of its kind in Australia and we're very proud of it. The system uses granulated activated sludge or biomass. The wastewater and sewage treatment and boasts significant reductions of up to 45% in overall operation costs of the plant. Decrease in chemicals and energy. The technology also produces Class A recycled irrigation water. Also, the lab at the site is in progress of getting the NATA accreditation. Once done, Gympie Regional Council can use them for testing as well. Gympie Regional Council thanked Adam Branch, producer, coordinator, and South Burnett Regional Council for organising the site visit. There was a lot of benefit in the sharing and learning between councils, and there was also people there from Mackay also on that visit. And I'd like to move my portfolio to be accepted by council.
Thanks, Councillor Froloff. Well done. Quite a lot to be across there, isn't there? A lot happening in wastewater. Seconder, Councillor Potter. Thanks very much. Okay, councillors, any questions in relation to that? Thanks, Councillor Potter.
Actually, it's not a question, it's more of a statement, I think, Mr. Mayor. I just want everyone to be aware that this plant is such a big deal that they even put it on one of their stamps over in Holland So some of the councillors were actually given one of these, a set of these stamps, but yes. So the Kingaroy plant is on stamps from Holland.
Well, thank you, Councillor Potter. That's good to know. And yeah, Manager Lowe, I'm assuming that you've got some of those stamps in your collection now. Would that be correct? Oh, look, yeah, absolutely. Congratulations on the great work and previous council and getting this level of infrastructure in our regional community. Absolutely tremendous. And there's a lot of work happening clearly in waste and wastewater right across the region. And the ongoing work with the installation of the meters, 1,000 of them to go in between now in the next few months. So well done, Manager Lowe. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly a great update. Thank you, Councillor Frolov. I just had a couple of questions. The first one, just in relation to the comments around Kingaroy's water supply. I recognise that risk. I know we've talked extensively about the heightened risk of Bundoomba pipeline dropping off and the challenges we have with the water quality of Gordon Brook. I just wanted to ask the question in relation to, we have talked about a potential reservoir off-site storage at Gordon Brook, so I was just wondering where things might be at with that project. And my second question, I just wanted to confirm, I know we've had some discussions about our current allocations, and I am concerned when looking at those remaining allocation, that we are tracking, well, what are we in February? So for the year to date from the Boyne River and Tarong pipeline, we've used 1,053 megalitres, and we only have that 772 megalitres remaining in that somewhat allocation. So and noted that Blackbutt's now exceeded its allocation by 11%. So just wanted an update from the team in terms of what's happening in the background with regards to those key priorities of council, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker, and Manager Lowe will come to you shortly, but if I can just perhaps provide in some introduction to that in terms of the fact that we have had the options analysis released on the National Water Infrastructure Development Fund's feasibility study. That options analysis identifies as one of the recommendations that council consider pursuing the security and reliability of urban water supply under a recommended integrated strategy, which includes seeking additional allocation in relation to Bundoomba through negotiations involving Sunwater and other parties. That council also then consider the future utilisation of Gordon Brook potentially for irrigation. And of course, as we know, as part of that strategy, that would require the design and funding of an off-site storage facility for perhaps 150 megalitres of water that would then give us 4 to 5 weeks holding capacity should the Bundoomba pipeline go down. So that certainly is progressing. That's happening both at an operational level in terms of design work, and I'll be over to Tim shortly to update you on that. And that's also happening in terms of conversations at a political level that we're having with the state. So, but a really good question. Thank you. Tim, did you want to extend on what I've just said in relation to the Bundoomba Gordon Brook mix and the off-site storage facility and the work we're doing there in relation to the first question? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, with regard to the off-stream storage, we've done our baseline design for the off-stream storage. We've called some initial costings of that. The prices were quite high, so we're actually going back to local contractors to get people that specialise in dam building to try and get a better reasonable cubic metre rate because the initial pricings that came back were just unacceptable. So at this stage, because of the Christmas break, we haven't got back to that. But yeah, the design is there. As Mr. Mayor said, until we get that allocation, like the increased allocation, it's chicken and egg stuff. You need that allocation for surety to do the off-stream storage.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. And then the second question in relation to the current consumption and the year-to-date, I can see that on Barker-Baramba system, we're 73, we've got 73% left with 5 months to go. And with the Boyne and Tarong pipeline at Bundoomba, we've got 42% left with 5 months to go. Tim, just confirm that. You're comfortable we're tracking reasonably well? I mean, we don't know what the seasons will bring over the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, with regards to our overall allocation, from the Boondooma one specifically, we appear to be tracking a lot better than what we were several months ago. We had meetings with the blackbait irrigators. That was a very good meeting. They've restricted their usage. They're really cooperating with us very well, and that has brought us down, because prior to us meeting with the blackbait irrigators, we were tracking to go over on our overall allocation, which we just can't do. And so this has brought it back into the fold. So extrapolating what we're using at the moment, we will just be borderline under the consumption. So hopefully, and I'm not a avocado farmer, but I'm hoping that the trend is their big watering time has gone off, so therefore it will trend lower over time. Yep.
Thanks, Manager Tim. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah,
do you-
thank you for that clarity. Certainly, I think I understand the outcomes of the options analysis, and I'm really keen to progress that work. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the update. I do just have a question, and I'm hearing you in terms of the chicken and egg scenario with the Gordon Brook Reservoir, but it was also my understanding that that reservoir is our security blanket. Should the Boondooma pipeline go down, we would be able to store, regardless of the outcomes of the options analysis. The reservoir construction does help us to store some water. Should the pipeline go down, with our existing allocations, we can supply the people of Kingaroy with suitable drinking water to the Australian drinking water standards. So I just want to confirm that that's still a key outcome that we're looking for in terms of that work that we're doing.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, you're absolutely correct, Councillor. That is our long-term goal, because of just the reliance on Gordon Brook. As you're aware, when you get down to 50%, it causes us massive operational problems.
And the lining of the dam was really to help prevent those water quality issues that are known in the organic matter that's at Gordon Brook Dam. Have I got that right?
Yeah, so the lining for the chemicals in the grounds and everything. So the lining is basically to have Boondooma water isolated from any of the surrounding geological influences. Yes.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. I think that's really important work, and I'm glad to hear it's progressing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. So that off-site storage facility is very much about providing a clean source of water that we can treat off Boondooma without the effects of, as you said, of that runoff. And that's something we need to get costed, establish what it's going to cost us, and then have that conversation in council in coming months about proceeding with that, and how any perhaps temporary or permanent transfer of allocation could also secure up water for Kingaroy's urban supply needs. So it's an important body of work, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well, we've got that on the table now.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask a question.
Where are we
Sorry.
up to?
I just want to ask a question.
Oh, Councillor Duff, I didn't see you over there with your light on. Did you have your light on?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, good. Okay,
Sorry.
over to you, Councillor Duff.
I just wanted to ask about the design of the Gordon Brook spillway. Where's that? What's it costing? Is that have we got consultants in to do that design? And into the future, we're going to have to spend quite a significant amount of money. How far into the future if we go down that path? Because I know that there's talk about making that a dam for the irrigators, but there's that big millions of dollars that we have to spend there. Just want to know where that's at. And also the second question, I guess there is no real answer for it, but the unscheduled failure of an outage of the Boondooma Dam allocation, do we have a plan B?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding the spillway design, that's in progress at the moment. And you're correct, Councillor, we are looking at spending a huge amount of money on that dam. The costings of that will be still a long way away. So we actually put in $200,000 this year for the design, so that we could actually go to market and try and get a reasonably firm price on the design and construct of the dam, of the wall modifications. There is a budget allocation for next year's budget for over a 3-year project for about 11.8 million. But we're not convinced of the costings of that as yet, because it's only there's no detailed design completed yet. Short answer is I actually do not know of the total cost it's going to be in the future.
Question was about a plan B if something does happen with the Bodooma Dam spill allocation tomorrow, for example.
Yes, well, the major town that's at risk, Boobah Dam is our fallback for Blackbutt. So we actually maintain about 20 to 30% in Boobah Dam by scouring off the pipeline. So that way, if we have those breakdowns, we can actually continue to treat water. A fallback position at the moment for if the Bodooma pipeline went down for Kingaroy is purely 100% Gordon Brook. And that's where we get our operational issues, particularly when you get down to the 50%. Our clarifiers just struggle to cope with that quality of water.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Thanks very much, Manager Lowe. So, councillors, we've got the report presented. Thank you, Councillor Froeloff. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. So, Council, the next item is 7.2, the Clark and Swenson development at 69. And you see there that the development is located as per the map shown opposite Swiggers, is currently approved. However, Kingaroy, and in particular this area, has extensive trunk upgrades required, forecasted in the forward local government infrastructure plan and water 10-year programs. The developer has approached council with an option to undertake major upgrades via a possible infrastructure agreement or undertake on-site engineering design. This report is to provide council with a presentation in relation to the water requirements for this area and possible impacts with the advancement of capital works to enable the trunk infrastructure. Recommendation is that council note the presentation and a further report be presented to the Infrastructure Standing Committee in March 2021 for resolution. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Froeloff. Councillors wishing to speak, ask questions. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, I have one more item to add to the agenda, and that's in relation to the town entry signage. So there has been a lot of work done over a long period of time in working with the Department of Transport and Main Roads by our staff. I'd like to acknowledge that. Thank you, General Manager Meehan and Manager James. At this point in time, though, we're in the process of looking at the installation of signage in the towns that to this point have not got signage. And we've also had some feedback from the community in relation to the existing signage that was installed previously. So we're there, those concrete structures that we see on the side of the road. There has been some negotiations done with DTMR around perhaps trying to turn them so that they face the road a little bit more. And James can provide us with some technical update on that, as well as perhaps trying to lift them up off the ground, but there will be limitations on what we can do there. So we need to understand what those limitations are as imposed by DTMR on that. There is in consultation that I've had with the community, there has been, from my experience, a number of community members who've come forward and groups, and a conversation in Mergen last night about the fact that many people in this community seem to like the village signs, which are effectively an aluminium structure. They're up higher, they're more visible, in the words of the community, and the option has been put forward. Are we perhaps better off to look at having those throughout all of our regional towns consistently, including villages and towns, and then perhaps to look to redeploy those concrete signs, the smaller, lower concrete signs, into perhaps becoming feature items in our high-tier parks, in our central parks, such as Lions Park in Kingaroy, QB2 Park in Mergen, etc. So I'm not wanting to put that forward as a motion or a recommendation to council today. I'm really wanting to ask, probably put forward a motion that council, for consideration, that we ask for a report to be brought back to council to be workshopped in relation to options for town entry signage across our region. Only reason being, we need to get this right. It's been going for a long time. I know we want to get it done, but we need to get it right because the community have raised concerns over a period of time about this. So I'm therefore going to move a motion off the floor that a report be brought back to council to be workshopped by seeking advice here, Manager Darcy, as to an appropriate time frame for that, in consideration of the fact that the staff will need to go back and talk to DTMR. They'll also need to look at implications for our funding from Works for Queensland that has to be acquitted by 30 June. So there is a body of work for them to do to bring that report back. They can't just do that within a couple of days. Are we happy to run that out to 28 February or 31 March? I'm open to suggestions. The report be brought back to council, be workshopped in relation to town entry signage and set a due date on that. Open to advice on that, Manager Darcy. What are your thoughts around time frame to get that report back?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item has been worked on, as you correctly identified, for a fair while, and it took even longer to work with the main roads in order to achieve the outcomes of council's resolution. In relation to needing to review with the various stakeholders on this, we will need to liaise with the Department of Transport and Main Roads. We would need to understand the quantity of what we're looking to fabricate as well. We'll need to work with the designers as well in transposing the images from the monuments across onto the new signs as well, because they're a different dimension and they're a different material that it's going onto as well. So we would need to work with them in the background, and then obviously working with the contractors as well, just to make sure that they're going to still be available. It is very important. So there's a few parties that we need to work with. I would be more comfortable if we could come back to this in March with everything else we do have on right now, to be honest. But I'm open to discussion on this.
Thanks very much, Manager Darcy. CEO, Mr CEO, 31 March, can you see any concerns, issues there from a finance point of view with the funding arrangements?
From a finance, no.
At least other issues, yes.
There'll be other conversations, but I suppose if I could clarity, what are you seeking to workshop? So we're not looking to have the end designs and everything else. It's a conversation. So if you leave it at 31 March, but I think we'd probably be able to accelerate that conversation about what you want and what you're seeking. And that would be a workshop conversation rather than having this is the end product.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'll put that motion forward that the report be brought back to be workshopped, town entry signage by 31 March 2021. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. Councillors wishing to speak for or against that motion? Councillor Jones?
Yeah. Just if we go down this path, and I'm not against it at all, Mr Mayor. Fine with the suggestion, but what's to say when we get back and we decide to do something different? 3 out of, let's just say, Blackbutt, Nanango, Mergen don't want to shift their signs, but Wandai and Kingaroy do. I'm just looking at the future of, because Wandai and all that have got their signs already, and the system has already started to unroll. I'm just aware of the fact that the people of Blackbutt might like their position of where their signs are, and they might like the signage, and they mightn't agree with that. What's the options there? I'm not against it, but I guess I'm playing the devil's advocate here just to, we've been out to community consultation quite heavily on this sort of stuff, and we presented the signs and all that sort of stuff, and we had feedback coming back and that sort of stuff. So I'm a little bit concerned about rehashing stuff and then having to go back and keeping in mind, as you noted, Mr Mayor, that we have to spend the Works for Queensland money by the 30th of June, I think, is it? So it's just going to, like I say, please, I'm not against the suggestion, but I'm just wary of the fact that community consultation has been done thoroughly, and whether or not this just creates another drama, and can we get this installed in a time frame?
Yeah, good observations. Thanks, Councillor Jones. Anyone else want to speak for or against, Councillor? We'll come back to you actually, I'm the mover, aren't I? So yes, Councillor Duff, you can proceed. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to ask a question to Councillor Jones, because are the Blackbutt ones up? No, okay. So the ones that are up, Wandai and Mergen. And I've had, and I'm sure Councillor Henshin will back me up, negativity around the big ones that are on the ground. Everyone loves the village signs, and last night at the meet and greet from Mergen, they were just saying they absolutely would prefer the village sign to the ones that are on the ground. And I think that the ones on the ground, they're absolutely magnificent, except for the positions that they're in. You can't see, like I went to a lot of trouble to get a happy fish and you don't even notice it. But if you could put them into your parks or somewhere else, they would be like absolutely magic. Like people would get their photos taken in front of them and all sorts of things, but sitting out there as they do, and even if we got them up a little bit, I still think that they're not ticking the box for what people want. And I know the Wando one, and Councillor Henshin would back me up, they just don't think that they're not high enough and they're not clear enough. And so, yeah, I just think we would, rather than go down the path of putting them in and then getting the pushback, I just think we've already done 2 lots and no one's overly happy that I've spoken to. Just, consider it, do a workshop and look at what the ramifications are. But I think we'd get broad community support to put those village signs across the region.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillor Froloff? Oh, you had your light on, Ross. Did you want to speak? Yeah, Councillor, back to you, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just quickly, I totally agree with Councillor Duff and her comments, and Councillor Hanshin. The Wandai signs seem to be facing away from the road and looking like when you're driving into the town, they seem to be facing down towards the rail trail and all that sort of stuff. Totally get what you're saying, but I just want to be confident that I'm representing the people that put me in this position to make good decisions. So I just wanted to make sure that we get those, just the consultation right. And who's to say that, like I can't give you a yes or a no whether Blackbutt would like it, because they've got all the footings and all that done. Whether or not Nanango, I don't know. I think Nanango and all that's got their footings done as well, but they haven't been placed in yet. I don't know. So there's other regions across. So I just don't know. Look, the feedback on certain towns that haven't got the signs up makes it a little bit difficult to represent them and say whether they do like them or they don't. And if they haven't seen them in place, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. Manager Darcy, do you just want to respond to a couple of those observations and we'll come back to you, Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to make Council aware of where we're at with the discussions and what we do have approval for right now, because the observations that are being made collectively in the room are very accurate, and it's around understanding that we have gone away and worked with the Department of Transport and Main Roads to rectify the issues around the orientation and the sighting and the levels. So we do have, we have developed a standard drawing to assist the contractor and our project management team on the delivery of those signs to make sure that we are going to be getting consistent outcomes with that monument installation. We're looking at levels adjacent to the shoulder of the road as well, such that we do have a variety of verge issues where the locations of those monuments are, whether they're too low, and looking to elevate them up such that you do have that proximity and that visibility, the ability to observe it, as well as the rotation. The rotation of the signs is critical as well to assist the users and the drive-by traffic in being able to understand the illustrations of the sign. So there is a number of little tweaks that we are looking to do to assist with the outcomes here. So that is underway at this point in time. So happy to have any further discussions if there's any other concerns around how they're sited or the visibility of that, but I just wanted to make the council aware of where we're at right now.
Thanks very much, Manager Darcy. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and certainly I can understand the intent of the discussion, and I think some of the ideas put forward are good ideas. However, my biggest concern is, and I'd like to confirm, what has this project cost council to date?
Can I take that on notice, Councillor Shoemaker? I don't have a figure available to you today.
I will send in a request for information because I would like that clarity. Certainly, I think this comes back to the discussion we had earlier today around the importance of project management and achieving a consistent outcome, and what we actually are intending to achieve is what we deliver on, and the expectations are clear. I'm concerned personally. I feel like this council's catching their tail a little bit here, and some of the signs have gone up. I think they're beautiful. The work that's been done is exceptional. They're beautiful signs, but clearly there has been a number of barriers from where this project has started, a number of obstacles from where we've started to where we've ended up. And I'm quite, as a ratepayer of the region, disappointed to see that the signs have gone in, they're beautiful outcome, and our community should be cheering because they're far better than anything we've ever had before. But in my opinion, it's pretty clear there's been a clear disproportion between the standard we set and our expectations and our intent as a council and what's been delivered. And now we're trying to fix this problem. So I welcome the opportunity to workshop this. I am concerned about the budget allocation, how much money has been spent on procuring these signs, what would be involved in terms of picking them up, relocating them, ordering new signs. And in light of some of the discussions we've had in our key priorities for the region, I have concerns about where we end up in this project, and I will be seeking more information before I can make any decisions. I feel like we are catching our tail, and yeah, I'm disappointed to hear something that should be a positive thing for our region has ended up this way. Certainly I welcome the opportunity to workshop this, get some clarity around when we can actually expect to see all signs up and our way forward. That's my concern. I feel some money has been wasted, money and time and energy has been wasted. in this process.
Thanks, Councillor Mitchell. I'll close that off there. Thank you very much. Okay, first, I'd just like to close up. Councillor Henson, we'll close this up shortly. But can I just acknowledge, Manager Darcy, the work that you, General Manager me have done. I know this hasn't been easy for you fellas in having to work with DTMR. It might seem to be something that would be easy in black and white, and clearly it hasn't been. So I want to acknowledge that. And I think, Councillor Shoemaker, you've raised some good points there. That would be the purpose of the report and the workshop, would be to bring that information forward so that Council can consider that and then can have some conversations about how we want to progress that forward. I would suggest so.
Mr. Mayor, it's just that the RFI would be more than welcome because there was extensive information and extensive workshops going back into the previous council. And I can recall quite clearly the presentations with the little silhouette of the man, Calabush, no. Against the signs. So they were all, so the dimensions, there was extensive agreement, and then the TMR issue, not to blame TMR, but there was a range of external factors. So yeah, so more than welcome to the RFI Council because there is a whole body of work and presentations to a lot of workshops.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Councillor Henson, just before we wrap up, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. But just quickly, could I just bring it to attention? Councillor Potter some time ago mentioned in the relation to the back of these signs, entry signs to the towns, that we put something on the back, and be that cultural signage or language or welcome, goodbye. Going to be noted that if we're going to do something with these signs and the ones that have got to be done, can that perhaps be looked at the same time, rather than we put these signs in, or we shift signs, or we lift signs, and then a month or 6 months later it's, oh, that's right, we're going to put something on the back of them. Can it just be noted that happen as well when any of this work may take place?
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Henson. I think that's a really good point. Everyone seems to be in agreement with you that we need to get this right if we're going to do it, and the workshop, the opportunity. Councillor Jones, quick comment to wrap up.
Yeah, just quickly, on Councillor Henson's point there, we are talking about putting some signage on there about the Waka Waka people and saying goodbye from Wandai Mergen or whatever in the Waka Waka language, and Councillor Duff and I will work on that more or enthusiastically in the future, but a good point. Just again, I just want to reiterate what the CEO said. There has been a lot of work, and I don't like laying blame, but DTMR have been very difficult and made this issue of these town entry signs very, very difficult. And I will be happy to be corrected standing here today that if it was our staff that was the hold up, I think they've done a wonderful job. I just want to reiterate that. But again, with the cultural signage, I think that's a good idea, and it may be an issue that we have to address in the 21-22 budget because of the costing of it moving forward. But we can put that on there, and it won't be too far away from the completion of installation.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Jones. Okay, so we'll wrap that up there. Let's put that to the vote. We've got it on the table here. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you all. We have no matters in the confidential section for today's standing committee meeting. So I'll now move to close the meeting at 12:42 a.m. Thank you all for your participation, council, staff and members of the gallery, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.